Merry meet witches. I'm Gory B Movie, and this is Gory Talk, where I invite people on and we hang out and talk about stuff. It's kind of like a late night hot talk show, but with more gory stuff. Anyway, tonight I've got Kim Doubt with me today. She really does it all. She's an actress. She's a paranormal investigator. She does the haunted tours of Seattle. She has a podcast called Ghoulish Tendencies, and she's a true crime expert. And I know her from Crypticon. I cannot talk today. So I'm really excited for you to meet her. But first, I want to thank the bring in our guest, Kim. Hey, Kim.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, you are a very busy person. You have a lot of things you do.
I do. Sometimes too many, but it is good to stay busy. I actually just finished a spooky production of Macbeth, which was really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we leaned very heavily into the spooky of it all, which was awesome.
There's so much spooky stuff that originated with Macbeth, like Something Wicked This Way Comes, the trio of witches. Like that's not from actual witchcraft; that's from Macbeth. So Hocus Pocus, all of those. It's crazy. Like Shakespeare, man.
Shakespeare had a lot of influence, I think, in ways that because I teach Shakespeare too to teenagers, and my favorite thing is to do a bunch of quotes from Shakespeare that they don't realize originated with Shakespeare. Like In a Pickle, that's a Shakespeare one.
Yeah.
And it's so bizarre, and to see their eyes go like, wait, what? I'm like, yep, that's right.
And so many like book titles come from Shakespearean quotes, like Fallen Our Stars and stuff that I don't know.
It's absolutely
Sound and Fury. Yeah, the man's influential, like massively so. So, yeah, you teach acting. You've also been acting since you were in high school. You've been in a lot of productions.
I have.
What's the spookiest role you've ever taken on?
Spookiest role I've ever taken on? Oh, that's a really good question. I did do a couple of years ago a one of the local short films, Cookie Crumbles, where I got to get hit with a blood cannon.
That's fun.
So that was, I don't know if that was necessarily spooky, but it was very memorable. It was my first time getting hit with a blood cannon.
So what's the difference between a blood cannon and like a squib?
Oh, so a blood cannon is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's when you're getting hit from spray, like in front. So the moment that happens is that there was a demon and she like rips a guy's arm off, and I got just doused in his blood. And what I did incorrectly, and it had not occurred to me having never been hit with a blood cannon before, I wear contact lenses.
It gets under your contacts.
You know what? It does. And when you're doing a shot where you're getting doused in blood, you do not have multiple takes, especially not on a short film with a limited budget and a limited time. And the designer, the effects artist had used Kool-Aid to get the color, which also is very gritty.
Yeah.
So we're doing the take and I'm getting doused in this Kool-Aid blood, and pretty quickly my eyes are burning and I'm like, but I can't.
Oh, the
just hold
Kool-Aid
it.
would be so painful on your eyes, because I've seen this happen to people with contacts at Guar, but I think
Mhm,
that's just food coloring and water. But Kool-Aid, oh my
mhm.
goodness, ouch.
So I held it. I held it until they yelled cut. And as soon as they yelled cut, I was like, can someone help me, please? Can I get some water?
Oh my gosh, that's so awful. That's
So
intense.
that was memorable. That was memorable. But not, I don't know that that was super spooky.
I think that counts. I mean, it's definitely gory, so I'm here for it. That's awesome. I really love that. Let's talk. Let's first. I want to talk about your spooky tours that you do. Also,
Yes.
first, I want to say hi to everyone in the chat. You know, Danny, horror addicts,
Yes.
and we've got Fior Grimaldi here. Welcome.
Ooh, hello.
And there's probably people lurking who are super shy. You guys should say hi.
I don't bite except on Thursdays. We're good because it's Sunday.
Exactly. It's Sunday. Nothing can go wrong.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know if a lot of people know this. I think a little more people are familiar with it now that we've had the movie Malignant. Because in Malignant, they go into the Seattle underground. But you want to tell them the whole story, what happened to Seattle and why we have a whole other city underneath Seattle?
Yes, and I will say if you've seen Malignant, and that is your frame of reference for the Seattle Underground, it is incorrect. The poor people in the audience with me when that scene first happened, you see these huge like catacomb tunnels, and it's impressive and it's epic and it's beautiful, and the Seattle Underground is nothing like that. What happened is when Seattle was first founded, and for our friends who are not local to the area, you may or may not know we've got like Puget Sound right there, and it was founded in an area in Pioneer Square. That was our first neighborhood where there was all of these mud flats, these tide flats, because the tide comes in, and when the tide comes in, things flood with water. So it wouldn't be uncommon to be just walking through water at high tide. And the really unfortunate part was the toilets, because our sewage pipes went into the ocean. So if the tide came in and you were on the toilet,
That is so awful.
it's the world's most unfortunate bidet.
Yes.
It was not great. So this went on until 1889 when we burned the city down. A fire started, and we have a city built mostly of wood. It burned very, very quickly. It was gone. It was 30 to 40 city blocks were just done. So when it came time to rebuild, someone had the thought, you know what maybe we should do is try to prevent the water from flooding our city twice a day. So they proposed this idea to basically raise the whole city up a level. But your local merchants are like, well, we need to rebuild. We need to make money. We need to keep doing our day to day, and rebuilding a city and lifting it up. That's not something that just happens. So they all built at sea level. So the city kind of built around it and then built another first floor on top. And that's why we have the Seattle Underground. But contrary to what some movies show us, it's not catacombs, right? It's not tunnels. They're not all interconnected.
Not France.
It's not France. We
No,
wish.
instead what we
were
did was
France.
more just shoved it under the carpet.
Exactly. which feels so Pacific Northwest.
It really does.
We don't like something.
I love the PNW.
I love where I live.
Though it's kind of funny. I've never lived in Seattle specifically. I live in Wenatchee, which is on the other side of the
Yes,
mountains.
yeah.
But I grew up in a town that had also a massive fire. So I grew up in an Air Force base. And we had lived in a town called New Caversfield. And it's called New Caversfield because Old Caversfield burned down. And they just left it there. They literally just left it there. There was a big, I think it was caused by lightning because there's trees that are were
Oh,
struck
yeah.
down. And then it's all overgrown, and there's this massive creepy mansion in the middle of like the woods. So we would go there and just play around, but like they didn't clean it up. It's all just left there. I mean, I think people probably picked through it, but
But
there
it's just
and
there.
so yeah, New Caversfield is just the town next to it. They're like, we're just gonna make a new town. That's what we're gonna do. I
We
don't
don't
want
know
to
what
deal
else
with
to do.
this. It's fucking Thursday. Fuck this shit. We're just gonna make a new town. I don't want to fix it.
That's gotta be. Did anyone die during the fire?
I actually don't know because it happened before I lived there,
Okay.
and it's an Air Force base, so nobody tells us
Oh, of course
anything.
not. Yeah.
So I don't know, but a lot of the kids believed it was haunted. Like that big mansion that's in the woods in the center
Yeah.
of it all. Like you would hear dogs and stuff there, but supposedly nobody lives there. So why do I hear
Ooh.
dogs? You'd see lights on sometimes. So people would say that they'd seen things, or people would dare each other. Couldn't get to the mansion because it's really overgrown around it. Like there's a lot of like brambles and such. Which again, it was very much like something out of Sleeping Beauty. So it was made it extra creepy. So people would be like, "Oh, I dare you to go up there," and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna get ripped to crap for your stupid dare." But yeah, I always thought they should have like paranormal investigators there or something because I think probably if it was that big of a fire, somebody had to have died.
Yeah, well, and it sounds, if nothing else, just so atmospheric. Like it should be the setting of a scary movie.
It really should be. And then just the
Oh,
fact that because we were on an Air Force base, the kids could do whatever they wanted, long as
oh yeah,
because the parents generally assume you're safe.
on an Air Force base.
Yeah, so I would love and oh my gosh, the funnier part about that is you've seen where I grew up because it's in a movie. I've talked about this before too. So where I grew up is actually condemned now
Of course.
because I know, right? They did nuclear testing, which explains so much. And I didn't know about this because we moved a year before they closed down the base. So
Yeah.
I'm watching YouTube with my son, and they're talking about forbidden places around the world. And then they mention RAF Upper Hayford, where I lived for a period of time before we moved to America. And it's closed for nuclear testing. So it's completely overgrown. We had one store on base,
Yeah.
completely overgrown. And you can see like satellite pictures of like wildlife have taken over. But they used that for the movie World War Z because it's supposed to look like it's been a zombie apocalypse. And so I'm watching that movie. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the video store we need to go to.
I
Like,
know this place.
it's crazy. It's so crazy.
Oh, that's wild. Oh, I love that. No, I suppose if it's abandoned, like you do get into some of those, there's a reason why some of those houses people aren't allowed to do investigations in there. They start condemning it. There was one of the it was one of the institutions, the abandoned institutions in Washington that they finally had to I know they took it off the map so you couldn't easily find it because
Because it's
so many
condemned?
people. Yeah, because it was completely abandoned, completely condemned, and people kept going in there because it was just creepy and they thought there was ghosts and they wanted to see, but it was really remote, and you started having people were getting attacked because a bunch of dumbass ghost hunters are going out there by themselves being like, this is a great idea, we're gonna go at night, and someone else is like, cool, I can rob you. So some of those places do get so run down you can no longer, or nor should you, go into them.
When you do the haunted tour of the Seattle Underground, is that anything like? I mean, I think the only frame of reference a lot of people have, if they're not familiar with Washington, is Malignant. What's it like down there?
It's really interesting, actually. Part of what makes the underground in Seattle so unique and so interesting is that depending on where you are in the underground, you might go in a section. Like we used to have access to the J&M Cafe, which has been closed for a few years now. As far as I know, it is still closed. But it looked like something out of a scary movie. Like you went down the boards to get down into this area, and there's dirt floors and there's concrete over here and there's exposed plumbing, and you could see the remnants of the old businesses. So there's a brick wall where there was windows. You can see where the doorways were. The under there specifically, at one point in time, there'd been a couple things, but there'd been a theater down there, and you could see the sign still painted on the wall that was, tickets 25 cents or whatever. So it does sort of look like you're going into a very rundown old business or town that is now completely enclosed. But you go into a place like Merchant's Cafe, which is also on Pioneer Square, also incredibly haunted. So I'll tell you about that.
Yes.
And they have it as part of their business. They have a downstairs bar area because it's essentially basement spaces. So you have these, kind of large space that are divided by the sidewalks and the streets. And so it might just be part of the business. You might walk in and not even realize you are actually now technically in the underground. Or you might go into a place where you're like, well, I might die here. Something is hiding down here. This is a slasher film waiting to happen.
Yeah. I'm surprised there are not more movies that haven't taken advantage of that location.
Well, part of it is the underground doesn't actually, because it's not interconnected, it belongs to whoever owns the building, that section. And that's part of why you have, some of the businesses use their underground basically as storage. Some use it as, again, an extension of their business, or some just kind of like to forget it's down there and let the rats have it. There's a lot of rats in Pioneer Square.
I can imagine. Hey, Jack, and hey, Adam is here. Adam likes your Nicolas Cage pillow, as we all know.
Isn't it amazing?
Yes.
I also have an ornament on my tree that is Nicolas Cage that my brother gave me. It's my favorite. Yeah, I will. It's amazing.
By the way, Kim's links are in the description down below if you want to follow her on Instagram or check out our podcast.
Yes, come listen. We're doing actually we're going to be recording later in the week the second part of a 2-part episode on the true crime one, the Hall Mills murders, which were murders that happened in New Brunswick in 1922. Oh, wow. So it's good times. But yeah, if you have never had a chance to take one of the underground tours, if you've never been to Seattle, it is really interesting. The history is really interesting. Why it happened is really interesting. But more and more, there's areas of the underground that have not been well maintained. They're not super accessible.
Is it dark? Is it really dark down there?
It can be. When we were still going under the J&M, there were times when they had, like plugged in hanging light bulbs. But if they forgot to plug those in for us, we'd be coming down the little plank and it would be 100% dark. And I'm just like, I'm going to go stumble around over there and try to plug a light in and hope I don't pick up a rat or trip on something exposed.
So you see a lot of rats when you're down there.
So many rats. I used to, when I opened the J&M door, because you had to go around to the side entrance in the alleyway, which all by itself was so sketch. You basically like, let me take 20 people into an alleyway. This is going to be fine. Nobody's going to die. And I opened up these doors and I would tell people to stand back and they would not believe me. I was like, no, seriously, stand back. If you're wearing sandals, stand way back.
Don't wear sandals in this tour.
No, don't wear sandals in Pioneer Square, period. Yeah. That's just life advice. But I called it the running of the rats because you'd open the door and I'd stomp on the wooden planks. And next thing you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of rats would just stream out. I had one once that ran over my foot and then he saw all the people and he got startled. So I'm wearing my, combat boots, but he's sitting there just like,
where do I go?
And so I just had a rat on my foot and I was like, buddy, you got to move on. Just move on. I'm shaking my foot. Like, come on.
Take him with you. He could be your new friend.
You get weirdly attached I got weirdly attached to the rats under the J&M. I started naming them and coming up with backstories for them, which some of the tourists thought were really funny and some of them did not.
I think I would like that. I mean, I named the squirrels around my house.
Right? It's nice. They have little cute personalities.
Rats are really smart.
Yeah, they actually are. And they're not one of the animals that gets a lot of credit for that either. But lots of rats in the underground. It's a little better now. They've been trying to clean up. clean up some of the underground areas, but you'll see lots and lots of rats. But it's when they rebuilt the city and they built it up, they were worried about fire, right? Because they had just burned it down. So it's lots of brick. It's a whole lot of brick. And these are historic buildings. The problem with brick in a place where we get earthquakes.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And on top of when they built the streets, they basically were just filling them in with whatever they had. So like, here's some dirt, here's some horse carcasses, here's some trash. And all of that means it's starting to sink. So then it was the Nisqually quake, which happened back, I think it was 2001 that we had here. And that did enough damage to a few buildings. They actually had to take a couple of them down because they were so dangerous. But the current fear is if we have any kind of major earthquake, Piners Square is just gonna. So that's fun.
Yeah, because that would definitely be scary. So let's talk about, because it's haunted, right?
It's haunted.
So have you gone down there with like the gadgets and everything and investigated it?
Oh yeah. One of my favorite locations is Merchant's Cafe, which is the oldest continuously running restaurant in the Pacific Northwest. It was built in 1890. So it was built just after the Great Seattle Fire. And the location it was built in was already super, it was a photography studio. So it was really historic because it was the only known picture of Chief Seattle was taken at that little photography studio. And it burnt down in the fire. They rebuilt it as Merchants. Merchants is one of, honestly, and I've hung out in a lot of haunted spots in Seattle. It's one of the most haunted places in the city, hands down.
What's happened there? Like, what are some of the stories from there?
Well, so it was a brothel at one point because it's Pioneer Square. That's you move a foot, you were probably standing where there was a brothel. And one of the ghosts is a gentleman who used to work at the brothel. He was the kind of like the bouncer, and he worked the door, and there was this giant safe, and the safe is still there. It is on the upper level. It's really cool. And if you were coming in to, if you had weapons, if you had valuables, you would check them with him. And he was really, really particular about people touching that safe. So he didn't let anyone touch it. So when Darcy took over in the early 2000s, she was actually warned about not touching the safe because the guy still was really protective of the safe and was like, nope, we don't, nobody touches it. That's for the best. So, does that say ghostitutes?
Yes. We also have Straight at a BS podcast who says they're born and raised in Seattle and they would love to do a tour and pick your brain. So,
oh yeah, yeah.
Post your questions. We'll pick her brain. All you want tonight.
But Darcy didn't initially believe the people saying please don't put anything on this safe. She's like, okay. So she had this wine rack installed above the safe. And this was right before Thanksgiving weekend. So everyone, bar was closed Thanksgiving Day. Everyone goes home. And that Friday, her bartender comes in and looks at the front door of Merchants. And there's this red sticky substance seeping out from under the door. And he's like, I'm not dealing with this. I don't get paid enough money to deal with this. So eventually when they get inside, they see, and there's pictures of it. Every single bottle of wine was on the floor. Nothing else was. Just like none of the other alcohol bottles, nothing else around. Just like somebody took every bottle of wine off the shelf and just smashed it. That it was above the safe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Darcy was like, all right, this isn't going to work. So she poured a shot of whiskey and put that whiskey shot on top of the safe.
Oh, honey. And was not poking the bear.
No, but it was a peace offering. It was just like, listen.
Okay.
Like, you like whiskey? I like whiskey. Who doesn't like whiskey? I'm not going anywhere and we have to coexist. So like, here's some whiskey. I'm going to keep this topped up for you at all times. So drink it to your heart's content. And since then, she can put things on the safe.
Okay.
And what's wild, because sometimes when I go in to talk to the bartenders, because they'll even flag me down and be like, oh, I gotta tell you this thing that happened. And so you go over here like, all right, what happened? And there was a period of time over a couple months where, because the whiskey glass always eventually drains, but you know, it could also be evaporating. But the bartender said every single day he was having to refill that whiskey, that he would have it be filled at the top of shift, and by end of shift he was coming over.
Evaporate that quickly.
No. And it's not the kind of thing that somebody could just like reach across, and they've got security cameras.
And it's super humid over there. So
yeah, exactly. So there was this period of a couple months where that whiskey was, I was like, I don't know, maybe
I kind of want them to put like a camera on it.
Well, and that's they do have security cameras, but you can't see, they're not good enough cameras where you could like watch even if it was happening slowly or fast. You can see the whiskey. You can see that nobody is touching it. But yeah, they need to put a whiskey cam just straight on it.
I watched the Monterey Bay's otter cam. I want a whiskey cam.
Right? Yeah. We demand a whiskey cam.
We demand it.
We demand it.
So let's talk about most haunted places in Seattle. Like not just the underground.
Right. Well, we got a whole lot of them. Pike Place Market is one of the bigger, probably, I don't want to say touristy ones, but you know, if you're going to come along, everybody goes to the market. That has a couple different spirits in it. Princess Angeline is probably I think my device in the other room is telling me the weather for tomorrow. Sorry. Princess Angeline is the daughter of Chief Seattle. And she's seen sometimes like walking around where she used to have a shack that was right there. And so she's seen a lot of times walking around there. There's also the ghost of a little boy who is seen and sometimes playing with a ball because, you know, we can't have a child ghost who doesn't have some kind of creepy red ball.
Yeah.
It's the law. There's so the Moore Theater is kind of a funny one because the Moore Theater has been a lot of different things. It's also right in that downtown area. It's a really cool old theater, but it's been, you know, a theater. It was a boxing, I don't know what the boxing ring doesn't sound correct.
I think that's correct.
Okay. For years they held boxing matches there. And then for a while, it was one of the SIF theaters. And it was when it was one of the SIF theaters, there's this whole story that I want to like asterisk as a allegedly kind of story, because I have tried so hard to find any kind of actual evidence to substantiate it. And I've never been able to, but this is one of the favorite stories people tell, that there was some employees there. And one night, late at night, they decided to do a Ouija board session in the basement.
Hey, you never do that. You never do that. Have you seen The Exorcist? Don't do that.
What? Have you seen like half of the movie? Like,
okay, here's movies. Just to not to interrupt too much, but just to interlude here. Worst, I guess, best case scenario, you're gonna have a really boring night just sitting there holding a planchette that doesn't move,
right?
And you're bored.
Right.
I guess if it's successful, then you could have some horrible demonic thing bothering you.
Exactly.
Neither one of these is good.
No, neither one is how I want to spend my Saturday evening.
You just not gonna put them on the wall for decoration and leave it alone.
Yes.
Got one up there, never used it.
They're very cool to look at. Also, sometimes I'm the not to be that guy. Ouija boards were developed, as we know them now, were developed as a courting game, a parlor game. And the reason was you put your hands on it. And if I am a Victorian lady and I cannot touch a young fellow's hands, but I can have my hands be adjacent to his hands on the planchette, and I can sit close. Mm-hmm.
And so the adrenaline of it being spooky.
Exactly. And our knees might touch under the table.
Heavens to Betsy.
Heavens to Betsy. But I mean, they were designed for entertainment. There's some cultures that have used variations on what a Ouija board is for actual like spiritual ceremonies, but the Ouija board as we know it was designed as entertainment.
Park Brothers.
Exactly. But
Yes, I interrupted your story,
oh,
so
but
continue.
but you're absolutely right. So they were doing this Ouija board session and they got interrupted by some of the owners or some of the bosses. And so they never closed the door.
Oh my goodness.
I know. And so as the story goes, woo, there's now like a portal to hell in the Moore Theater.
Charming.
Or some kind of demonic, like that's the like very extreme version that gets said, but that's why there's so many hauntings, they say, is because there's this gateway.
Would you say there are more haunted spots in Seattle, or are there any in Washington or even the rest of the Pacific Northwest that would top that?
Oh, Pacific Northwest as a whole, I mean, Seattle has some really good ones. I'd actually say that one of the most haunted places I've ever dealt with is not in Seattle proper. It's in Port Gamble, Washington. It's the Walker Ames house. And if anyone's ever been to Port Gamble, it's a really cool old town. And the whole town by itself is incredibly haunted, which is pretty cool. And it's historic. So you have all of these awesome old buildings and old houses. But it was built, the Walker Ames house itself was built in the late 1800s. And the first time I ever went into the Walker Ames house, I did not know much about it, and that was deliberate. When we're doing investigations, we try to go in blind as much as possible. And when you're dealing with historic places, it can be a little hard because, you know, stories.
Yeah.
But walking into that place, and I'm an investigator who is very much a like the science side of
And
it.
what are you bringing with you to these investigations? Like what tools?
Oh, I mean, your very basic tools you always want to have is a good EMF detector, a camera of some kind. I usually have a couple. I like to rotate between digital cameras as well as I actually have a Polaroid camera I use specifically for investigating because you can't easily fake a Polaroid picture. Where digital pictures, it's funny, I just got sent some pictures the other day that somebody wanted me to debunk. And it's a lot of, you know, you take a picture on your phone and you're moving it all and you get streaks and you get whatever. But Polaroid cameras are a lot harder to fake. You want a tape recorder of some kinds. You can use a digital recorder. I also have a good old fashioned cassette tape one because I find those really fun to deal with. You can set up, we use cat toys, these motion activated cat toys that light up. So if I'm doing like an EVP session, which is where electronic voice phenomena, it's where we set up recording devices and we ask a bunch of questions. You know, what's your name? Tell me about yourself, whatever. And when we play the recordings back, we've sometimes caught answers to the questions. And you hear these a lot on some of the ghost hunting shows, but we'll set up the cat balls so that if we're all sitting in a circle or we're all sitting around and we're still, and suddenly in that corner 10 feet away, a bunch of those cat balls light up, you know something might be over there. And it tells us we can start taking some readings from there, whatever. We'll set up cameras, obviously. You know, we'll use thermal devices, thermal cameras, to see if we can catch changes in temperature. But you can get really, really complicated. You can stay really, really simple when you're doing an investigation. Some investigators really like spirit boxes. I am less fond of them other than I find them amusing. They're entertaining.
What's
if you
the
want
spirit box?
The spirit box are these.
Is that the one that goes off the radio waves?
Yes.
They did an investigation in one of the houses, you know, Danny just mentioned that we lived in. It was built in the 20s and it was really weird. Like there's a giant pit of dirt.
Oh.
Like enclosed with like cinder blocks and it's just filled with dirt. Like it was really weird. A lot of weird stuff would happen there. But people contacted us and they had heard stories about the house, so they wanted to set up cameras. And in one of the rooms, the camera would just keep coming off the dresser. But they had one of the spirit boxes where it was kind of going through the radio and just picking up words and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It can be really, really interesting. The problem with spirit boxes is when you're working off of radio waves, you could also then be getting radio interference.
Or like a commercial. So like we kept getting, it kept saying burn, fire, and stuff, which it does seem to go together. But it could have also been they're picking up a commercial about fire protecting your house.
Mm-hmm. So they're from an entertainment standpoint, they're fantastic, and you can sometimes get some really interesting things with them. In fact, I'll tell you a story about a recent
investigation. They called it a Frankenbox.
Yeah, there's a couple different, and there's different types, there's different names, there's variations on them. When it comes to like, if I'm trying to present evidence, like real evidence, if I'm trying to convince a skeptic that I captured some kind of paranormal phenomena, spirit boxes are a really hard sell. They're too easily debunked. So even if you get some legitimate results from them, that's not going to sway anyone onto your side that this actually
when they did a lot of stuff at our house, and that was the camera coming off the dresser was probably one of the things that was most upsetting, and then the door in that room was slamming and there's no one down there. But we also went in that room and it's completely dark and there's lights like kind of like a pen light around moving around the ceiling, and there was no source for that light. So that was the stuff that I thought was really interesting. Like it wasn't like there was a car driving by or something. Like there was just nothing.
There was just nothing. There was lights. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that would be really interesting. There's so much equipment you can get. You can go down so many rabbit holes. But I think, because I have a lot of beginning ghost hunters who are like, what should I do? I was like, honestly, if you want to just base try, but just like, I want to just go somewhere and give this a shot, take your phone, put it in airplane mode first. But you got your phone, you got a recording device, and you got something to take pictures and video.
Well, that's another thing. I watched a ghost hunting. This one guy my son really loves. He debunks a lot of ghost hunting stuff, and all their electrical stuff was going off. He's like, "You have your phones in your pockets."
Yep. So, guess what that does?
Yes. So no wonder your stuff's going off. No wonder you're getting all this interference. So.
Well, and it was funny. I was investigating. Actually, my folks own a house in Leavenworth. And I'd gone there to do an investigation because there's a spirit there named Greta, because my uncle lives there and he's had a bunch of experiences with the spirit. So I bust out my fancy EMF detector and I'm going around and man, I'm getting readings. I was like, what's going on? This is off the charts. And we realized that there was actually an issue with the wiring to the point that I'm calling my folks on the phone being like, yeah, someone should come and look at this.
But that's good that you caught that.
Exactly. So you end up catching stuff like that too, you catch things that have a lot of times when I go in to investigate like a individual residence, what I end up finding is rational explanations for why something's happening. There was an investigation done, this was years ago, but they had a carbon monoxide leak. And so the family was experiencing these. They thought they had a demon in the house because they were experiencing these like really intense things. And what they were experiencing was they were slowly being poisoned by carbon monoxide.
I've also heard of ones where they have like mold and stuff in their house.
Yeah.
People's brains.
That can absolutely do it. So there's things we test for first because I hate to say it, but a lot of times I think between horror films and ghost hunting shows, people get a warped perception of what a haunting actually is. And what a haunting usually, I'm generalizing, but it is very, very rare to have hauntings that are ever at the degree that you see in a horror movie, where there's just this constant activity of things flying off the walls.
Like poltergeist.
Yeah, it is not to say there have not been documented cases of things like that happening, or there is not the odd location that is extremely active. But for the most part, it's small things. It's why it takes people a while to
And
notice.
it's usually in old houses. The only things I've ever seen that are kind of weird that, because I'm on the more the skeptical side.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it was only in that house, but that house was really old.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and we test for things like, again, old houses also means older wiring.
yeah.
And a lot of times, so when you have really high levels of EMF, it also can make you feel like, it makes you uncomfortable. It makes you feel like something is wrong because
Mhm.
you're sensing it. Your nervous system is being all lit up by this stuff. And so you sometimes find these really high levels, and it's not a spirit, it's bad wiring, and you're resonating with that and you don't realize it. There's cases of like certain frequencies of sound that can do it too.
Yeah.
Pipes, old pipes, the way air can travel through those, both sound travels, but also it can sound like groaning, it can sound like moans. So it's like, and I always feel like I'm killing people's joy when they are so convinced there is something hot. There was a person, they swore they had like the most haunted house ever. They had raccoons in their walls.
Oh my gosh.
They
Well,
had
I'm glad you
raccoons in
found
the
that.
walls. Yep. Adorable little ghosts that were in their walls making
I mean, I think
scratching.
that's one of the things that scares me the most because I've lived in some places like the place I live in now is not super old, but it's built in the
Yeah,
the 50s,
sure.
and it has one of those attic spaces up above. And I've just seen so many movies where they find out that someone's living up there. So the very first thing I did is I'm going up there, making sure no one living up there. Like
They're not,
that
it's not the
scares me
boy.
so much more than a ghost because even if that's real and everything, the likelihood of you having a haunting so intense that you're in any kind of danger, I think is pretty low.
Yeah.
But if there's some weirdo living in your attic,
Oh yeah. And that does happen outside of horror films, I
it
hate to
does.
say. One, it's it kind of also, it comes back to, again, like, I can think of one or two investigations I've experienced where someone has been where has something physical has happened to somebody. There was an
Like what?
investigation I did where, I don't remember where this was. I think it was someone's home because it was years ago. This was early when I first started investigating. And another investigator, so it wasn't even me, felt like someone pushed her down the stairs. And that's one of the only times I can think of that I've directly seen or experienced a ghost being actually dangerous. At Merchant's Cafe, there was one of the old kitchen workers. He used to antagonize the ghosts. Like, they'd make him mad and he'd yell at them. And he would tell stories when we came in. He got pushed down the stairs once, and we came in one time, he had scratches all over his arm. And he said that they just appeared while he was at work. But for the most part, that kind of thing that's not typical. That's not typical. I tell people a lot, if they think they have a haunting, what you need to do is start recording everything you notice. You timestamp it. You also, if you have pets or children or anyone else living in the house, you have to note where are all those people and animals at this time. Because if you have a cat and you hear a weird noise from downstairs, there is a good likelihood it is your cat.
Oh my gosh, I've seen so many crazy videos of cats getting the zoomies at 3 a.m. and just causing a whole, it looks like your house has been thrashed around by a poltergeist, but no, your cat's just crazy.
Or the unholy noises they will sometimes make. You're like, that can't be a cat. And then you watch a video and you're like, oh.
I mean, this isn't at all spooky, but I heard the craziest noise the other day and I thought it was a cat in pain. It's a squirrel. Squirrels make this crazy ass noise. It's like, it sounds like a cat.
When I was living in the UK, because I went to grad school in the UK, and not everyone outside of London realizes there's a lot of foxes in the city.
Oh, yeah.
And my flat, we were on the bottom level, and there was this like kind of park that was right outside. And there was one night I woke up because I legitimately thought someone was getting murdered outside my window.
They make a crazy noise.
Well, it was a lady fox having a good time.
Yeah, I grew up mostly in Suffolk, England. I was born in Suffolk.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we'd get boxes. It's just different. Like I've told my cousin who's really into animals, like you should come to Pacific Northwest. It's totally different animals, but you get pheasants, badgers.
Yeah.
Badgers are like a lot of times they would go after your pets and stuff. Some crazy things happen there, but yeah, all kinds hedgehogs everywhere.
Oh, I
They're
want there to
so
be
cute,
hedgehogs
but
everywhere.
you see them in the road everywhere.
Oh,
So
little
sad.
buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I wouldn't like that. I don't remember how we got on this tangent, but
So we were talking about how you found raccoons, or how sometimes it could be the cat downstairs.
yes, yeah. Oh, so you record patterns of things and where everything is, because that's also where I've had a few people. I had a friend of mine. I investigated her house. It took her forever to realize something was going on because she had kids and cats. So every time something weird happened, she chalked it up to her kids and cats, and then started realizing it was not, but it took her forever.
Yeah.
But she started making note, because I told her to. I was like, start noticing if something happens, where are your kids? Where is your cat? Where is your husband? And she'd see something happening, or she'd hear late at night, her kids are in bed and the cats are in their beds, and something would be happening downstairs. So you start to record it for both reasons, both to potentially debunk, but also, oh, maybe there's more happening than I realize.
Yeah.
And I just haven't noticed. And you look for patterns. Is it, am I hearing a noise coming from the living room on Mondays at 3 a.m. every single week? Okay, that tells me we might be dealing with a residual haunting or something, if it's a consistent pattern to it. And a residual haunting is kind of an echo of a moment.
That's something I think I have experienced, because I had a basement apartment.
Oh.
And there was stairs, and it would sound like someone was going up and down the stairs all the time, but it didn't feel like the house was haunted. It didn't feel like there was like a presence there. But you would distinctly hear people going, and we didn't have pets and we didn't have kids. And there was no other stairs, so it's not like another part of the house. There's people who lived upstairs, but it was distinctly someone going up and down the stairs. And so it just seemed like it was like maybe an echo of somebody who lived there a long time ago.
Residual hauntings, there's a ton in the underground. The underground's got a lot of residual hauntings, and residual hauntings are really interesting because, in theory, because all of this is kind of in theory, you can have a residual haunting without someone actually having died. Because
that's what I was wondering. Like, if someone's lived somewhere for so long and they do the same thing all the time, going up and down stairs, making, spending a lot of time in a certain chair and stuff, like that energy is going to leave an imprint.
Exactly. It leaves that echo.
Even if they're still alive, they could be living somewhere else.
Or if a good example of that, like battlefields, you get a lot of residual hauntings, and because you have all of this really traumatic energy happening at once, and it just leaves this imprint of a moment. So it's there's a lot of different kinds of hauntings, and I think residual hauntings are a lot more common than people realize. And it's very likely you have something like that in your space and don't realize it because it's so subtle. It's, again, the like whisper of a footstep. It's seeing a shadow against a wall and then assuming what you're seeing is a car or just a trick of the light. And intelligent hauntings, which are your more kind of traditional horror movie hauntings or whatever, those are a little less common. But
there's something else I want to ask you about. Also, hi, Grandma's house. Nice to see you here. And somebody else came by earlier. I was going to say hi to. Anyway, hi. Another thing I heard about is sometimes it can be attached to a living person, like a little living person's energy. Like, especially, I think there was a book I read where they had stuff they thought had like shampoo bottles flying around, and they determined it was attached to their teenage son.
Yeah, and
like when he get upset.
You also get, and you get into that kind of weird zone of like, do you have a poltergeist activity? Because poltergeist activity is more about the individual person. But you can have spirits that attach themselves to people, allegedly, in theory, however you want to say it. It is not uncommon for it to happen to young people. You have the combination of, so children are more sensitive to spirits, children and animals. They're more open. They're more likely to sense
Do you
something's
use
going on.
any animals or whatever when you do investigations? To sense things?
I don't, although if we're going somewhere, I know people who do. If we're going somewhere where they have pets, we'll often ask if their pets have had any specific behavior. Like, is your cat sitting and staring at the wall for, 20 minutes and there's nothing there? Cool, which wall? We'll make sure to set a camera up or take some readings or whatever. It can help guide you. But yeah, pets and young children. But when you get into teenagers are really susceptible to that kind of thing because you're already going through all of these very emotional changes, puberty and all of that jazz, which can that kind of turmoil can invite something to be like, oh, you might be fun to hang out on. We did have we had, this was my old ghost hunting group. There was a woman who, she was sensitive to spirits, and she had felt like something had attached itself to her, not maliciously, but just she'd done an investigation and then something grabbed on and was trying really hard to communicate something to her. But what kept happening is she'd do an EVP session and she'd play these recordings back, and all you would hear would be screams.
Oh, wow. Like really loud?
Noticeable screams, not like horror movie level, but you'd hear just this scream. And they've got video of it somewhere. Because finally she sat down and she was doing an EVP session, just trying to contact the spirit. And she just kept saying, like, I want to help you, but I don't know what you want. And all I hear is screaming. And when you play it back, that's all you still hear. So she took a break because it was just a little too much. Some of my witchy friends will give me little bags of whatever protection-y stuff.
I'm one of your witchy friends. In fact, the house I lived in and what I eventually ended up doing is I did a cleansing, which I hadn't done for a while because in our room, it felt like there was something that would stand by the wall. And I never noticed anything flying off the dresser or anything. They said that when the people came in, but the guy was like going around and shouting and stuff. So I don't know this guy. I don't know what actually happened down there. But he was trying to like antagonize the spirits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I did sometimes feel like something was standing over the bed and like watching us, and I didn't like that. But you would also get this impression, like, because there's these really narrow stairs that would go up to the attic, and it felt like there was kids. And so sometimes I would just be like, please, I'm very clumsy, don't do anything that's gonna startle me. You know? But they didn't seem like it was anything dangerous. If there's something there, I don't know, I just got kind of like that impression from it. But eventually we just did a cleansing, and then nothing seemed.
And then it was one, I will
out and
and sometimes it's just dispelling that energy. No, my witchy friends will give me like bags of protection things that like just
Mojo
take
bags.
With you. Yeah, take this with you on your investigation. Just take it with you and keep it with you. And I'm like, cool, all right, I'll do it. Why not? It's funny too because I just actually watched Presence for the first time.
That was a really good movie.
I loved it.
And I loved the way it was filmed too.
Yeah. And
from the ghost point of view.
If you're into the paranormal, like, let's say like the actual paranormal as opposed to the fun paranormal, the horror film paranormal or like the Ghost Adventures paranormal.
I will say, like, I'm always on the fence. Like, if someone gives me a really rational explanation why this particular thing happened, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm all open to that. However, when it comes to movies that really scare me, it's usually paranormal ones because those are the ones I'm like, I think that could happen.
It depends on, because I even did a panel at Crypticon, I think, that was like, that's not how ghosts work. And it was, part of it was trying to weed out is like, these are the movies that feel very true to how a haunting happens, and these are the movies that like, nope.
Just like the presence though. I mean, I don't need Reagan puking up PC on me. I'm just the idea of somebody in your closet watching you, like, that creeps me out.
Presence to me hit because it felt so real. It felt so believable. this spirit that is mostly just there. It
And
is mostly just,
confused.
yes. And that, we see that a lot, even in EVP sessions of spirits who don't know what's going on. They don't know. I had a girl who had come up to me after one of my tours, and she was really distressed because she'd moved into this new apartment building. It was a old building in Capitol Hill, and there was a presence there. There was a spirit there, and she'd had a friend come in to like do an exorcism, and things got worse and
I
like
can
started
imagine.
to, and that's what she was like, I need it gone. And I was like, I hear that. And I hear that this must be really scary and distressing. But from its perspective, you came into their space and then you tried to disrupt them. So have you tried just speaking to it? Have you tried saying like, when you close doors, when you move my things, it scares me. And that's why I react like this. Would you please not do this? Or would you please, because as soon as you brought something in to try to kick it out, it just kind of dug its heels in.
Yeah.
And that's why you're now getting an escalation of the activity. So before you try to do that again,
I don't think I would do an exorcism because that seems very aggressive. No. When you do a cleansing, you're cleansing any negative energy, and that doesn't necessarily mean cleansing an entity away. Just taking
exactly.
You can do a cleansing on yourself to get rid of negative energy.
So. And if you're dealing with something more residual, it might get rid of it. That might be the end of some kind of residual haunting you have.
For us. And I don't want to. I keep changing topics on you. I'm looping back to some of them. Don't you worry. I remember. But I do have a question because Grandma's house. She mentioned something that has me interested. She said, "Wish I lived close to me. I have spirits in my house. My house was new when I moved in." Is it always older houses, or do you see things like this happening with newer places?
Oh, it can happen with newer houses. If you have, especially because if something happened on the land itself, absolutely.
And Poltergeist, that was a new house. But
but it was the land itself.
I mean, so I know it's a fictional movie, but example.
No, but it's legitimate. Because just because it's a new house doesn't also mean there wasn't an old house on that spot beforehand too. But also, I mean, if it's brand new, like just built this last year or something, it's doubtful anybody died there. But new houses can also have, if I'm an old person living in a new house and I die there, then I might still hang out. It could be a residual thing. Residual hauntings can happen anywhere. It doesn't just have to be an older location.
Yeah, she says she thinks it's the land.
Okay. I would be curious, with something like that, the first step would be to see what has happened on the land. What's the history of the land itself? What's been there previously? If, you see this actually, Bucota, Washington, which is where I just was for an investigation. That land has a lot of history. And so there's a lot of stuff reported, not just in the dwellings, but in the land and the surrounding area. So that's absolutely possible.
Dan, old ghost, new house, who dis?
You like that? Yes, absolutely.
But you 100% believe, yes, right?
I do. And what's kind of funny is that even on the podcast, and less so now, because when the podcast first started, Gabby, my podcast partner, we called ourselves Mulder and Scully. And I was Scully and she was Mulder. And there were times
that's
that like
crazy, because I would have guessed that you're more of a Mulder.
Oh no, I am sometimes kind of an asshole about it too. It's the phenomena of I very much believe, but because I very much believe, I am very skeptical and I am very particular about what I'm willing to accept as evidence.
I think with me, I'm very unwilling to commit to anything. So I would need a lot of hard evidence for me to go 100% hand on the Bible. Yes, I believe in that. Like I'm open to so much stuff.
Yeah.
For me to say 100% that's a ghost, or even that's not a ghost, I would need something, Yeah.
Yeah. When I've seen and experienced some real strange things on investigations, and that's definitely part of it. But it also, one of the struggles I think with proving the paranormal is a lot of times the most compelling things are personal experiences. So I can experience something that leaves no doubt in my mind that spirits exist, but a person's feeling, a person's individual moment of seeing something or hearing something or experiencing something is probably not documented. And so outside of telling the story, you don't have a whole lot left to then, like, that's great, you experienced this thing, but that's not hard evidence. That's not something I can take and show to a person. All I can do is share an experience. So that's for me is where I think a lot of the struggle can be. Because I know things I've experienced on investigations or things I've experienced even not on investigations, where I'm like, yeah, I can't explain that at all. And that was intense.
Yeah, I'm skeptical both ways though too. So if someone came in, they're like, absolutely, that's not a ghost. I'd be like, okay, you need to give us a reason why you can absolutely rule that out. Because
Yes.
I tend to be pretty open on a lot of stuff. So I wouldn't be swayed one way or another usually. But I'm open to pretty much anything.
And when I scully, I tend to scully pretty specifically.
I love that that's a verb.
Please to scully. Well, it's funny too, because Gabby now, because when we first started, sometimes almost to the point of me being a little bit too much of an asshole, I would scully stuff, and she'd just be like, oh. But now she's the first one to scully things. She's like, okay, so I don't think this is true because of the following reasons. It's this, it's this, it's this. And I'm like, girl, I'm so proud.
I'm a lot more trustworthy of people who have a fair amount of skepticism. Because I think some people are too eager to believe because they need to believe because they're afraid of the afterlife. They're afraid, like, there is no afterlife. They're afraid of death. And that, to me, is just as off-putting or hard for me to trust as somebody who's like, absolutely, there's no such thing as anything. Because there are some things that I 100% believe in. Like, I 100% believe there's aliens, not necessarily little green men, but there has to be other life on other planets. Like, that's just the odds say that we're not the only living things in the whole galaxy. That just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. No, I agree with you there. There's, and that's another thing where it's like, we may not have that hard evidence, but like, come on, guys.
That just makes it just, it's almost arrogant to assume that we're the only living planet with living things on it. I mean,
right. But also it tracks with Americans. So
So what have you seen? What are the most intense experiences you've had during an investigation?
Ooh, intense experiences during investigations.
One.
So one that always really stands out for me, and again, you do come back a little bit to like just some of the feelings you experience. This actually happened not during an investigation. Mm-hmm. This happened when I was in grad school in the UK, and I was studying Shakespeare, and we took a trip to Stratford-on-Avon.
And the thing is with the UK, because I grew up there, like,
yeah,
in America, there are things from the 1800s, but it is not old in like UK old, where the town I grew up in, we still have cobblestone down throughout downtown. Like, there's stuff that's been there since Shakespeare was alive. Like, it's old on a whole other level. So it's not just, has anyone died in this house? It's like, well, I mean, how many people have died in this house?
Who hasn't died in this house?
Exactly.
Well, it's, and like Stratford-on-Avon's awesome. It's where Shakespeare was born. But we we were seeing some shows, but we had during the day time to just like explore the town. And I wanted to go to this like weird, creepy museum, and no one else in my class would go with me. So I was like, screw you guys, I'm going in anyway. So I go in, it's the middle of the week, it's the middle of the day. So I'm the only one in this strange little museum in this like 3-4 story, I think it was a 3-story building. So I pay my £5 or whatever. I walk up the stairs and I'm learning about the dark history. And I'm like, this is cool. This is great. I get up to the top floor. And the first room I'm in is full of toys and dolls that are haunted. And you're looking at being like, okay, yeah, this is creepy. And there's a door, and on it is a sign that says, like, this is a medium's closet. And medium's closets were literally just like small dark spaces mediums would go in to try to communicate with spirits. And under it was another sign that said, enter if you dare.
You could go in it.
Yeah, me being me, I'm like,
Kim,
yeah, I dare. Come
don't
on.
read the Latin, don't play with a Ouija board, and don't go in the medium's closet, sweetie.
Listen, I was challenge extended.
No,
Challenge
I'm
extended.
proud of you, but I would have never let you go in there if I was with you.
I reach my hand out to open the door. And this is coming back to those things that, like, I don't have evidence of this. I only have what I experienced, which was somebody doing this. I felt my hand get slapped.
Good on them.
And I froze and I was like, okay, maybe I won't go in there.
Adam, how do mediums fit in a small closet? Wouldn't they be too big? Very funny.
Hey, but I'm pump.
Hey, Paraspooky. I mean, I feel like someone was doing you a favor. Like, no, honey, don't go in there.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Girl,
I feel
girl,
like
don't do
if
it.
I'm ever a ghost, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be swatting away Ouija boards. No, don't do that.
And the
I'm
Kims of the
helping
world
you.
were like,
Yes.
And I listened to whatever was trying to dissuade me. I was like, okay, cool, heard. I will not do this. There was one room left, so I turn and I go into that little room, and I step in the room. And to this day, I couldn't tell you what was actually in that room, because as soon as I stepped in the room, I felt like the temperature dropped 20 degrees. And I felt like something was right here. And whatever it was the most uncomfortable and negative energy I have ever felt in my entire life. To the point that I immediately turned around and walked out.
See, that's how I felt about our house in that bedroom. Like, there was a certain point of that bedroom where I have no evidence for it, but
Yeah.
I just felt like there was something there. And I'd had my friend Becky felt like the same way when she went to our house. She was like, there just feels like there's somebody standing there.
Something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I felt like if I stayed there, something bad was going to happen.
When you're in a room with somebody who's in a really bad mood and nobody can do anything else because their energy is just so overpowering, it felt like that.
And I got downstairs back to the lobby, and I'm still the only one in here. And there was a book that was like, the history of dark deeds of Stratford. So I picked it up and I'm buying it. And I'm talking to the woman who runs the place. And I said, I have to ask you something. And she said, yeah, whatever. And I said, I got upstairs, and she interrupted me and went, the last room? And I said, yeah. And she said, we have a lot of people who experience stuff up there. You felt something really negative? I was like, yeah. And at one point in time, it had been an inn, and someone got murdered up there.
Oh, wow.
And she said, from what she's been able to figure out, there's two spirits. And one of them is very friendly, and the other one is very not.
The friendly one's the one that swatted your hand.
Yeah.
I didn't want you stuck in there with a negative spirit.
Exactly. That was the warning of, no, you do not want to do that. But that, and this was before I was an investigator. That was a little bit of the catalyst of what made me go, okay, I've always liked ghosts. I've always liked spooky things, but now I want to know more. I want to know why. I want to know about spirits, why spirits stick around. Why is that happening? Well, I want to know why that's happening. And so that was sort of the thing that sent me on the next step of the journey of not just I like ghost stories to I want to be involved in this ghost story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely in England, I would say there's a lot less skepticism. Like most,
Yeah.
I would say more people believe in ghosts than don't, especially where I grew up in Ipswich.
Oh yeah.
Any town you have Ipswiches in America and stuff too. They have a history of witch hunting. Like we have a dunk tank.
Mm-hmm.
We have the cobblestone. We have a place where there's 12 trees where they say if you go there at midnight, there's 13. My dad went there drunk and saw 24.
Yeah, that
But
fits.
yeah, there was I've told the story before on the stream, but there was a family. They were really odd. You could tell which house was theirs because they had like this plastic shark in their roof. It looked like the shark crashed into it. They were kind of odd.
Mm-hmm.
But they were in the newspaper because they claimed they had a ghost that took care of their children, like made up the beds and stuff.
Oh,
but
wow.
There's no evidence of this. So
Sure.
like I'm a little skeptical of that story, but
Yeah.
that's where I grew up. Like people are just, everybody's got a ghost story and stuff. And then if you go to Ipswich Christchurch Mansion, it's a place where there's a big park, but the mansion's huge and you can tour it. It's supposed to be super haunted, though I've never seen anything there.
To add that to my list of
episode topics. I'll give you a whole bunch of places in Ipswich that are supposed to be super haunted. But yeah, I swear, like everyone you talk to has got a story there of some place you need to check out that's haunted. That is when it's supposed to be super haunted. And you mentioned here in Washington, what was the name of that house you went to? That was
the Walker Ames house.
What did you find there?
Oh, okay. So there's a number of spirits there. It's how many floors is it?
Where's
there's a basement
located at?
Port Gamble, Washington.
Port Gamble.
And there's times of the year you can get access to it. We know the guy that like manages it, and so he'll let us in to do investigations. But there's around October, I think they'll do tours, and you can get access to it. It's a beautiful, beautiful old house. But you've got, so there's the basement level, the first floor, the second floor, and then I think the attic level. So there's 4 floors. In the basement level, and my very first time there, I did not know any of the stories yet. And I walked down into the basement, and I'm taking some pictures. And I took one of the things we tell people on investigations: if you're taking pictures, take a whole string of them, just one after another. Click, 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 click. Because if you take one picture and you're like, look, it's a ghost.
Don't want to interrupt you, but just really quick story. I took a picture, and this is before they went digital, and me and my boyfriend swore, like, that's a face. That is a face underneath the coffee table. We looked at the picture, and everyone who saw it, like, that's a face. We actually looked underneath there that we forgot that we had this like giraffe figure in there, and it was dark enough that you only saw parts of it and it looked like a face. So yeah, I agree. Take a bunch of pictures.
Well, and the amount of times, like, I get sent pictures. Again, I just like yesterday, I was getting sent pictures by a friend who was like, is this a ghost? And I'm looking, I was like, no, let me take you through the steps of all the things happening to make this look like a ghost. The picture, someone was moving. You can see that something is backlit here. You can see the reflection of this here. The, light reflects off of dust. So you get a lot of...
You know a lot more about that, I think, from being from the pre-digital age, where like most of your photos would come with people with red eyes, or there'd be like a weird, looks like an orb, but it's the dust catching the light.
The dust catching the light, and something that a long exposure where you get what looks like, because that used to be a common prank like kids would do in the way long ago, when you had to sit for 30 seconds or whatever. So if you started here and then you moved, you'd get that kind of ghosty impression. And it's great. It is debunkable. I had a woman who sent me a video, and she said, I think I have a demon in my house. And I'm looking at this video, and I had to respond to her, and I had to say, you don't have a demon in your house. You have a spider inside your camera.
Oh.
Inside the camera. Because that was why it was looking so funky, is it wasn't on the camera, it was in it.
That's crazy. Yeah, I did see one ridiculous video. It was on that channel that debunks them, which I think is really fun. But they thought they saw something, and it's clearly a fly is on the camera. But inside the camera, that's great. That would look really scary. I can see why she'd be terrified.
And it was an older video camera, so it wasn't like a phone or anything where you're...
Did she get it out?
You know what? I didn't follow up. She never responded after that.
I'm concerned for the spider net as a spider mom.
Oh yeah, you've got the cutest. Yes.
Did you know a collection of spiders is called a clutter? So my room is clutter.
I did not. Oh.
So you teach me stuff. I offer something.
I love it.
I haven't gotten to the end of this Port Gamble story.
Port Gamble.
I hope the chat's following. I'm following the murder board of our story.
As long as one of us is, then we're good. So I took this series of pictures in this one specific corner. I still have the pictures. It's, normal lit up, the flash isn't on, but there's lights downstairs. So normal picture, normal picture, normal picture. Dark, gloomy, weird shadow, something. Normal picture, normal picture, normal picture, normal picture. I'm looking at these pictures. I'm like, what the fuck? So I walk into that corner and I have an EMF detector and it's lighting up. And I swear the EMF detector that I was working off of did not have a thermometer on it, this specific one. So I couldn't measure the temperature shift, but I felt a temperature shift. And I felt very uncomfortable. And so I went back upstairs and I was talking to the investigator lead and I was like, okay, showing her the pictures and explaining what happened. She said, cool. So in the basement, there is allegedly a spirit of a younger boy, but he does not like women. And female investigators who go down there tend to experience very negative things. And I was like, okay. So then later we were investigating on the second floor. We were in a room, it's like the yellow wallpaper room or something. And we're doing an EVP session. And I kept seeing out of the corner of my eye, it looked like a shadow, like something pacing in the hallway. And that seemed like upset that we were there. Like it was not a happy energy.
Like
it was
a frantic energy.
Yeah. And we've been asking some questions, but then one of the investigators I was with asked, do you want us to leave? And not on a recording.
Very polite question.
It's a very polite question. Every single one of us heard something whisper, yes. We all stood up. We're like, all right, great. We're going to go back downstairs. You have a good night.
Yeah, I that was the other thing that was upsetting when I told you that they came to our house. There was the girl who's supposed to be sensitive. She was really nice. I liked her. And there was another guy who was nice. But there's one guy who was just like swearing and hitting walls and stuff. And I'm like, if there's something in my house, please don't make him mad. I have to live here.
You have to respect. And that's something that, especially in the Walker Ames house, and something I appreciate that like Pete does, because at this point, like no one lives there. It's an empty mansion. And you have to be respectful of the ghost. They actually have sections of the house that are ghosts only, that people are not allowed to go. And they want to be really respectful that the permanent residents are the ghosts, that it is not people, it is the ghosts. So we were in the attic, and it was August, I think, and it's August in Port Gamble, Washington. It's hot. It is hot. We did have temperature readings up there. So we're sitting in a circle and we're doing an EMF or a EVP session. We've got a tape recorder here. There's a couple spirits up there, but there's one of them is a spirit of a little boy or a little child, but I always hear little boy. And they keep toys out for the spirit boy. And there was, I think, there's 3 or 4 of us sitting in the circle. And we, one of the other things we do in investigations is we record everything we experience, but we also record anything. Like if I drop my flashlight, I timestamp, 9:27 p.m. Doubt it dropped her flashlight. So if I'm someone downstairs at 9:27 p.m., I hear a thump from the third floor.
Yeah, then you know what it is.
Yeah, you can match it afterwards and be like, okay, not a ghost, just Kim being clumsy per usual. So even if during an EVP session you shift, you announce it. You was like, that was me moving my legs. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting in a circle. We're doing this EVP session, and we ask, is there anyone there? And we hear, if there's anyone here, could you give us a sign? And we hear a thump from the back of the room. So we're all like, okay. If there's someone there, can you make that noise again? We hear the sound again. We're like, great. Would you like to come and sit next to us in the circle? And at the same time, because we timestamped it, on my left side, I felt my whole left arm, like I got goosebumps. It got so cold. And I timestamped it and recorded it. Uh-huh. And the girl sitting to my left timestamped and recorded that she got on her right arm like a temperature drop happened. like something coming and just sitting between us. And there, sorry if you're hearing sirens right now. I live in First Hill, so they're coming to get me.
It adds to the ambiance.
Yeah, exactly. And then so later that night, we'd come back up late. It was 1 or 2 in the morning, I think, when we came back up to do an additional session in the attic. They're getting closer. Because we'd heard that there was another spirit, but he tended to be most active late in the evening. And this spirit was allegedly very malicious, had attacked somebody at one point, and that was, it just had this really negative energy. And it's August, it's like 80 something degrees out. We're in the attic, heat rises. It is very, very hot in this room. I think our recorded temperature was something in the 80s. And we're doing an EVP session, and very suddenly the temperature dropped over 10 degrees, like that. Right when it was this shift in the room of like something coming in and just, it's that cliche scene in the movie where something comes in and all the candles go out. That's what it felt like, is something coming in and it just got cold. And those kinds of experiences, and again, you've got the evidence of the temperature shifts. You've got those kinds of records. But when you feel it, when your next thing is, yes, and I just felt like something was in the room with me. Unfortunately, that's not hard evidence I can put forth. But the Walker Ames house, even on a light night, because that, from people who had investigated it before at that point, they're like, it was a pretty light night. And I was like, this was a light night. Okay. Something's always happening there.
Do you believe that there's a particular time of night or day that's more haunted than any other time? Because I've heard a bit from investigator shows, but I don't know how true that is. They usually say like 3 a.m. because it's the opposite of the time that Jesus was crucified, or midnight.
Honestly, so much of it depends on the individual haunting.
I think that makes more sense.
The very practical reason most investigations happen at night, we have to try to control our environment as much as possible. Because if I am doing an investigation while I have a house full of people, any sound I get, I can't use. Any readings I get, well, there's other people in this space.
Yeah, you need a controlled environment.
Exactly. So honestly, the reason why we tend to start our investigations later is less because it's, the witching hour or whatever, and more because it's quieter. If it's a business, the business is closed. Streets are less noisy. So for me, it's usually about control of a space and what's in it. But that being said, I think a really good example of that is the Mutual Life building in Pioneer Square has a residual haunting. This was back in the early 80s. There was a kind of performance artist group called Sankai Juku, and they were doing this performance of a piece called The Dance of Life and Death, and it involved them lowering themselves from the top of a building slowly down to the ground. And during this performance, and there's video of this because there was news crews there, and it's honestly, the video is chilling to watch. One of the performers, there was an issue with his rope. His rope snaps and he falls and he died. And since then, there is a residual haunting at that building, and you can see this white mist right on the outside of the building where he was before he fell. And the vast majority of the times that mist is seen is around noon in the middle of the day, because that's when it happened. And it's most active it happened in September. So it's most active around August and September. There tends to be an uptick in sightings, but you have something like that, and it is very much based on
So
It's
I
related to.
remember you did a panel on how movies do hauntings wrong. And I think there's probably a lot more wrong than there are right. So if you were
Mhm,
to recommend either paranormal investigator shows or
mhm.
movies about ghosts or hauntings that you think are better than other ones as far as how they represent hauntings, which ones would
Yeah.
they be?
Uh, and to be fair, I don't watch a ton of the ghost hunting shows because they tend to piss me off.
Especially what's his butt, who's on Ghost
Zach Baggins.
Adventures. I can't stand that guy.
I can't. I can't.
He
The
did
amount
that
of
Demon
times.
House movie, and it was so
No,
bad. And did you watch The Devil and Father Amorth?
I
I
did.
have
Yeah.
never been so pissed off at a movie. I had to like walk out of the room. Someone, oh. So nothing happens the whole documentary, but at the end of it, he says this woman who was possessed, and it it looked dubious. But
Yeah.
at the end of it, he says, I met with her in a church, and then she levitates and she does all this crazy stuff that's like out of The Exorcist, but we didn't bring cameras in.
Wouldn't you know it?
How convenient, Mr. Friedkin.
I remember when I was still working for Belladonna, the horror magazine, and I'd gotten sent one of Zach Baggins' documentaries. I think it was called Demon House or
Yeah,
Demon.
Demon House.
Yeah.
That one's terrible.
And I got maybe 20 minutes into it, and I text my editor and I was like, can my review of this just be the word no? And she said, no, it cannot. I was like, and so then I got another 10 minutes in, and at this point I had finished an entire bottle of wine, and I text her and I was like, I am a half hour in and I am one bottle of wine down. And she said, I think PayPal probably at this point, not Venmo, because I don't think Venmo is a thing yet. I will PayPal you $10 to go to your corner store and get more wine, but you need to finish this movie. And I did. I went and I got another bottle of wine and I came back and finished it. And the amount of times in it were beyond the like god awful recreations of events. The amount of times they'd suddenly turn the cameras on and be like, all right, you know what just happened? This thing just happened. Let me tell you about it. And I'm like, yo, how many cameras do you have that you didn't have one running at all times?
You're
Come
trying
on.
to make a documentary. It's a little too convenient.
It's a little too convenient. You know what's funny?
Grandma's house doesn't like him either. I can't stand him.
I have to be well, in the amount of times when I'm covering something haunted related for the podcast and I'm looking at what ghost hunting shows have covered it, and of course he's covered it, and I start watching an episode just so I can do my due diligence, and I should start like live tweeting me watching Ghost Adventures, because I'll start texting Gabby and just this running commentary of how pissed off I'm getting.
That's why I liked the movie Grave Encounters. A lot of people didn't like it, but I liked it because it was poking
Loved
fun at
it.
those shows.
Yes.
Like, I love when they found the gardener and he's like, have you seen anything around here? He's like, no. And he
No.
gives him $20 and the guy's like, yeah, there was a ghost.
Yeah.
Over there. I love it so much. And then how they do that super intense opening where they're like crossing their arms. Oh,
I use that as an example of people like, what ghost hunting movie should I watch, or what ghost movie should I watch? I'm like, Grave Encounters.
I think that's a great one.
You want to know what it's actually like. That's what it's like.
I also think Supernatural, where they have the ghost facers, is a good one.
Yes. Lake Mungo, I think is
Fiore is leaving. He does want to say something to you. He says, lady says, I head off for the night. I just want to say a few things. Kim, I now follow you on Instagram, and you both have my love and support. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
You as well, Fiore.
It's nice. Yeah, Lake Mungo, I think, is one that deals with the hauntings in a really interesting way.
And it's so good because I think it works whether you're a skeptic or you're a believer.
Yeah. And it always, I'm a sucker for a mockumentary because it tends to I have big emotional responses to those kinds of films. And that movie packs a lot of very heavy stuff.
Really good rewatch value, I think.
Absolutely.
There's so much there that I like when a movie doesn't have to do the big noise and the big zoom in, and it allows you to find stuff on your own. And I've rewatched Lake Mungo a few times and found things like, hey, I didn't notice that there. So
these very subtle, beautiful things. This might sound kind of silly, but honestly, The Others, I also just think as an idea is such a cool, and it's an old enough movie, but I still don't want to spoil it if no one's ever seen it.
The idea that they are as confused as you are, if not more so. Again, with presence too, like not having an idea who
Mhm.
you are, where you are, why you're there. And I think that might explain some of the really frantic energy people feel.
Yes. The Awakening, I think, is kind of an underappreciated one, and it came out. It was Rebecca Hall, I think, and she's a like paranormal investigator in like a post World War One era, and she debunks everything, and that's her thing, is debunking. And like there's some plot stuff that gets a little bit like but in how they're portraying hauntings and how she's approaching hauntings from a place of being like this old school Scully, I think it's fantastic.
I've seen
And
that one. I haven't seen that one.
oh, it's, you know, it went kind of under the radar when it came out, and I think again it has some, the script isn't perfect, but Rebecca Hall is so good, and the cast, it's
She
Rebecca
is
Hall.
really good. She was also in, wasn't she in Night House? That was good.
Yes, she was in Night House, and it's Dominic West, I think, is the male lead, and he's wonderful. It's these Imelda Staunton is it's all these great British actors. Mm-hmm. And that one for me, I really, really enjoy, and I think it's really
I
interesting.
have to mention this for my dog. So my dog is only, I feel ridiculous telling you this. My dog has only sat through one movie all the way through. It was so bizarre.
Mhm.
So we had a TV at the end of our bed, and the dogs would sleep in the bed. They never gave never any interest in the TV. We put on this old, I think it's Irish movie, called The Lodgers. It's about a haunting.
Yes, I love The Lodgers. Yes,
my dog watched it from beginning to end. I tried to pet him, and he was like, "Get off me! I'm watching The Lodgers." So now we make jokes all the time that he doesn't watch a movie unless it's haunting. It's it's old, and there has some kind of like brother sister romance in it.
Okay.
So we're like, "Hey, you want to watch Crimson Peak?" You know, I actually haven't shown it to him yet, but he might be into it. It's kind of along the same lines.
Well, I was gonna say, and Crimson Peak is another one that I actually think I mean, it's obviously it's a highly stylized movie, but in how they deal with the ghosts, I think is really, really cool and really interesting.
How do you feel about Paranormal Activity? I mean, I'm not saying like one, that movie scared me, but I feel like a lot of the stuff they tell them to do is spot on. They do tell them, don't record it, don't talk to it, don't get a Ouija board. And so all this stuff happens, and I'm like, well, I did tell you not to do that.
You were warned.
Yeah.
Actually, the first one, I think, and beyond the fact that I just think as a filmmaking experiment, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But no, it's on point. It's not trying to do anything super sensational initially. There's a build to it. I think that absolutely is one that is, in terms of how real hauntings play out. And I mean, obviously in a movie it has to kind of go somewhere. It has to have that really big moment, but Paranormal Activity, the pacing of it is quite believable. I think Exorcism of Emily Rose is another one that,
I think that's good too, because it shows the courthouse like experience of it, because he really was, I mean, whether you believe it happened or not, there really was a court case. And I think that's interesting. Did you see American Haunting?
Yes, I did.
That one.
That's what I'm trying to remember. I was like, I know I watched it.
That's the one where this woman, she picks up this diary that she finds in her house, and it's got Donald Sutherland in it, and it's from back in the day, and they think their house is being like haunted, but then you find out that what happened to the girl.
It's oh yes, because it's the Bell Witch. It's loosely based on the Bell. I was like, that's why I watched it, as we were covering the Bell Witch. But also that it left apparently very little impression on me. I think anytime you have a movie that's dealing with a real case, because honestly, the first Conjuring movie, I actually think it's all very heightened, of course. But I think the first Conjuring movie is and the second Conjuring movie, beyond the fact that, it gets a little melodramatic, a lot of the beats of the case are correct. other than the fact that in the second Conjuring movie, the Warrens were there for like a day.
Yeah, I have an issue with the Warrens, and I think more people are aware of who the Warrens are actually
Oh no,
are
they were
now.
horrible human
They
beings.
were
Yeah,
terrible. They had a pet girl. It's
yeah,
gross.
they were
They were
awful.
terrible people, and I don't believe a word that they have said. And there's a reason why they've never covered Amityville, which is what made the Warrens famous, because that one's been famously debunked. So it made them
Yes.
look very, very foolish. But as far as what we actually have like on record and stuff, I think it is interesting that they explore those cases. And I like the character of the Warrens, the characters of them. I wish they'd just given them a different name, because I hate that these terrible people
The Patrick
are romanticized.
Wilson, Ed Warren, I love.
Yes, I like them. Can it just be Patrick and Vera?
Exactly. I would watch Patrick and Vera every day of
Yeah.
the week. And that's kind of how I felt watching the second movie, is that the Enfield haunting, and there's a British miniseries. Well, there's Ghost Watch, but I was gonna say, of the Enfield haunting, there's a it might be called the Enfield haunting, honestly. I think BBC did it a couple years ago, and that is actually a really, because the Warrens
Like a
had next to
documentary.
nothing to do with the case, and
Yeah.
it's such an interesting case. And the first chunk of the second Conjuring, until things kind of go off the rails, all the beats they're showing did happen, or did happen if they were faking it. But
It's
we're
the whole Valak thing that it kind of goes off.
exactly. But no, the Warrens themselves are awful human beings. It's unfortunate that a lot of the things they didn't start to come out until after Lorraine died, is really when it was kind of the worst kept secrets that
I don't
there
think
was
they
a
would
lot
have
of.
made those movies naming those
No.
characters now. If anything,
No.
they would change the name of the characters and just create something different.
Well, because when the most recent one came out, there was controversy around it, just because they are, and I think the movie even kind of acknowledges at the end, barely, where they're like, yeah, they were kind of figures.
Yeah, it's a one thing when the first one came out, we knew that they were questionable and they were certainly opportunistic, and
Yes,
they had
absolutely.
been accused of a lot of things, but it was kind of a he said, she said. We didn't know that they had committed actual crimes against human beings until after they had died.
There's a difference between being a con artist and being a sex predator.
Exactly. Like, that's something, like, there is evidence for that. As far as them being con artists, there are people who also believed them. So it's like, okay, well, this is interesting.
My Amityville Horror, that's one of the things that's actually I find so upsetting to watch in that documentary, is that poor boy believes it. He believes all of it, and he was so young. And it's kind of ruined his whole life. And you look at that and you're like, this is what your lies, and this is what it did to this child. And how messed up is this child because of this con that his parents and the Warrens were a part of when he was this very impressionable young little boy.
Yeah.
It's awful. Yeah.
So
But
I think that's a nice way to kind of tie into true crime too, because I feel like if you're into hauntings, you kind of need to be into true crime. I think before you even go investigate these places, you look into the history of the land, of the house.
yes.
You find out if something has happened there. And with Amityville, the one true thing about it is that the DeFeo murder.
The DeFeo murders happened. Yes. There is no doubt there. Whether or not you believe that like a demon made him do it.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah, we covered Amityville. Actually, at this point, it was an old episode. Amityville was a really, really early case that I covered for Ghoulish. It was a double episode. It was DeFeo murders and then the Amityville haunting. But there are a lot of hauntings that resulted in something kind of big happening like that. What I found really interesting when I start digging into a lot of these stories, I often find that the source material of it, when you really trace it back to the origin story, it's become a giant game of historical telephone. that particularly if it's an old enough story where it was all oral storytelling, someone shares what happens and then the next person does and the story gets a little bigger and the next person does and the story gets a little bigger, and that by the time it gets written down for the first time.
That's where I think it gets complicated. I do a show on this channel called Real versus Real, where especially
Yes.
I kind of go after the ones that claim to be based on a true story. Though I'm going to be doing like The Exorcist and some ones here that don't make those claims. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that was very hard is I did the Annabelle doll.
Oh yeah.
Technically, what is in those movies does line up with the verbal accounts that are in the Warrens' diaries and that other people have said, but it's, do you believe those accounts? And that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
You know, because other people have their own accounts too. So
Yes. Well, and so I recently covered the Stanley Hotel. And what there was
that's
there
the
was
one that The Shining is based on, right?
That's the one The Shining is based on. And I there was a one of the hauntings is supposed to be this woman who worked as a maid in one of the rooms, and there was an explosion. And the way the story kind of originally got told is there was this explosion and the woman died and now she haunts the room. And I start digging. I'm like, okay, I found the newspaper articles. There was an explosion. There was some kind, I think it was a gas leak or something in this the dining room and one of the rooms upstairs. If I'm recalling correctly, 3 people were injured. One of them was a maid. She was not killed. She returned and worked at the Stanley Hotel for decades afterwards. Now, she could still haunt that room. But to say definitively that the person haunting that room is a maid because of this explosion, we don't know that. She didn't die. Could be a number of people. And I think we want to attach a well-known spirit to a location or a well-known figure to a location that has a haunting without knowing for a fact that is actually the spirit. You see this at in Victoria, the Empress Hotel. One of the spirits is allegedly the architect, the guy that built it. But like when he finally died, he was murdered by, I can't remember if it was his wife or his wife's lover in the UK, I think. So he wasn't even on the same continent when he died. Now, does it mean that there can't still be a residual haunting there or some kind of haunting that's him? It doesn't. But why do we automatically go to this haunting has to be him? And the more you start to dig into a lot of the stories, the more you realize that what ends up getting reported tends to be a very gross exaggeration of what actually happens. And that's what I try to do. And the historical stuff gets really hard because you comb through a lot of newspapers. But the problem with newspapers, especially newspapers from 100 years ago, 150 years ago, no one's verifying sources. And all it takes is one newspaper to misreport something.
Yeah.
As soon as that happens,
like I told you about the story in my town, that was in the newspaper, but I don't believe it.
Exactly. And so then you're left like, what was I covering? It was the Beast of Gévaudan. And it wasn't until all the facts I kept seeing in the newspapers, they all said this one thing. And it wasn't until I pulled one of the autopsy reports, one of the original autopsy reports in French and translated it, that I got an actual answer. And and what was in the newspapers was 100% incorrect. But who's going to track down? I mean, like, what weirdo does that? I mean, it's me. I'm the weirdo that does that. But you're peeling back all these pieces, trying to find the truth and separate it from the lore. H.H. Holmes. That's one of my favorite examples of what actually happened versus the boogeyman he became.
Yeah. You probably get that with a lot of serial killer stuff too.
Yeah. The legend of the monster takes over from the facts. And I think for me, that does a disservice then to the retellings of when so like again, H.H. Holmes kind of reaches boogeyman status, and so there's almost he becomes bigger than what he was, which was like honestly a con guy who was trying to make money we know killed a couple people, but nowhere near
It's
what
kind of like the
probably
Ed
killer
Gein
did.
thing. We only, I think, know that
Yeah,
he for sure killed 2 people. He might have killed more, but most of it is believed that he dug up from graves.
yeah, exactly. And with H.H. Holmes, it's very similar. We know he killed a handful of people. We know there was 2 kids he killed, I think, and there was a few other women we know for sure he killed. But in his big confession that got printed in the newspaper, some of those people he confessed to killing were still alive.
And that's, I think, another reason why a lot of people think we don't have serial killers now. Well, not
Oh,
but the
yeah,
media and police forces have kind of agreed that we do not celebritize them like we used to. So we
yeah,
still do, but you're not going to see a Bundy or a Dahmer all over the. They're not going to get sensationalized like they used to, because they found out that a lot of people would do this for the fame. So you were
for the fame and the
creating
glory.
more crimes.
When there's a couple theories about various things. What you look at as being considered the golden age of serial killer, which was around like 1950 to 2000 or so.
I really, really have to pee. I was going to see if Danny would come here to take over for a sec, but is it okay if I just run to the bathroom really quick and come back?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
You want to just keep talking? You're
I'll just keep
welcome.
all
You
right.
can take
We're
over.
gonna keep
Okay.
all right, y'all. We're gonna do this. We're gonna talk more about serial killers. I love talking about serial killers. So we have this period of time from like 1950 to 2000 that's looked at and called by I think it was an author that talked about it being the golden age of serial killers. And that's where you have, you know, your Ted Bundys, your John Wayne Gacy's, your Gary Ridgway's. All of them came out during yes, here we go. You're the stand-in? Wait, stand in, stand back. That was impressively fast. I'll wait to compliment you again until you have your headphones in.
Thank you. I feel so much better.
That was impressively fast.
I am really, really fast. And I still like I save time when using hand sanitizer.
Oh,
So
yeah. We used to call that theater peeing.
that's what I
Because
do, so you don't miss anything. I remember once we saw Independence Day back in the 90s, and it was when they were in the tunnel, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
was back before the whole, the dog jumped part. So
Ooh,
I was
okay.
pretty happy.
I'm impressed with that.
Yeah.
I was just talking about that period of time where we had most of our notorious serial killers. We had your Gacy's, your Bundys, your Ridgways, and all that. But that they look at the relationship between World War II and the birth of all of these serial killers from there. There's a really cool book that I just read. Now I'm completely blanking on the name of the book. I'm going to have to look it up. It came out, I think, within the last year. And it actually was looking at a theory as to why we have so many serial killers in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, why do we? We have a disproportionate number here. We were just talking about that last week with Tori and Bree. Like, it's crazy.
Well, and I think Alaska is still number 1. But there's a theory, and this book was
like
written
Alaska, though, because it's the wildest state in the United States. You have all that,
all that territory you can. But there's a theory that it's related to lead poisoning.
Really?
And this is a pretty new theory, but it's looking at the relationship between where we had a bunch of these big serial killers and the toxic exposure they had, and the relationship between the I think it's the lead crime hypothesis, and childhood exposure to lead can contribute to violent behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Tacoma and some of these areas that had all these factories and this large production of. So there's a whole book that was written about that. It's fascinating, that goes into the theory as to one of the theories as to why. Some people think it's the rain, which I think is kind of funny.
But that doesn't apply to most of the state. Like, I tell people that all the
Exactly.
time. If you live on the other side of the mountains, which is a majority of the state,
Mm-hmm.
it's very dry. Where I live, it's very dry. Not currently,
Mm-hmm.
because it's raining a lot right now. But it's not anything compared to like Seattle or anything along Puget Sound.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really very interesting. But then you have, so like, I think a really good example of the direction a lot of serial killers are going in is Israel Keys.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel Keys, who most likely killed at least one person in the state of Washington, but Israel Keys was caught after he kidnapped and murdered a young woman in Alaska. And at the time, it was okay, you kidnapped and murdered a young woman in Alaska. But once he's in custody, he starts confessing. And part of what was so terrifying about him is his MO was a lack of MO. He killed out of opportunity. There was not a consistent victim type.
So you couldn't avoid him. You just were in
You
the wrong
couldn't
place
avoid
at
him.
the wrong time. Do you think
He
it has something to do with the wildness of the states? Because we're still the third most wild state in the United States. Like, does Montana have a lot? Because they're the second.
If I'm remembering trying to remember the top like 5 serial, like, because Florida, I believe, is on the list of a whole lot of serial killers. There's I have to look this up. This is gonna bug me. Okay. Most serial killers by state. Okay. Because number 1, I believe, is still Alaska. California has the highest number of victims. There you go. But yeah, Alaska has the highest capita. California, Louisiana. Ooh,
Interesting.
per capita. Nevada, Montana. Oh, yes, Montana.
So Montana does. I wonder if
Mhm.
there's a correlation between having a lot of wilderness.
I wouldn't. I mean, it does make it easier to dispose of bodies.
And you have more places to go where you can commit violent crimes without neighbors calling about noise.
Absolutely. No, I think there's something to that. But I think we're looking at a shift in, thanks to exposure to all of these, I mean, beyond just the phenomena of true crime and true crime documentaries and podcasts, which are essentially like how to not do any of these things. You want to not get caught, don't do this. I think you're seeing, it's not that there's less serial killers. And one of the theories too is that some of the people who would have become serial killers instead became mass killers, did school shootings, did that.
And it's harder to get away with some of that stuff too because of just advancements in crime scene investigations.
Forensics. Yeah.
Like Bundy, I know a big part of it was they were not sharing information between states. So the fact that he was going through different states helped him a lot.
And someone like Sam Little or Gary Ridgway relied very heavily on killing sex workers or at-risk women, who it took the police a while to acknowledge there was a killer. It wasn't until they found body number like 5, I think, because they found it was like 3 right all at once with Ridgway. There had been a few killings, and then there was a few all right next to each other where they were like, oh yeah, I guess we can't just say this is one of the hazards of being a working girl. So the women that would be targeted, it's also why Bundy stood out so much, was that he was targeting, God, it's horrible. He was targeting nice girls. He was targeting girls,
college campuses and such.
College campuses. And that was something that got people noticed.
Suburban white young women, you're going to get noticed. If you're going after prostitutes or people that are not going,
or Gacy or Dahmer, if you're going after young homosexual men.
Well, they did that with the Gabby Petito thing. Like, there were other women of color who had gone missing, and they didn't make the news. Not saying that Gabby Petito shouldn't have made the news; she absolutely should have, but the other ones should have as well. But she's a young white girl, so she got mass attention. And that's the thing. Like, if you go after people of color, you go after gay people, it's less likely to be a huge news story.
Homeless people, anyone who's at risk, who is a vulnerable person. And there was, I think now there is an understanding too of, if a body is found, then the likelihood of me getting caught goes up. So Israel Keys.
Who's Israel Keys? I actually don't know who that is.
Oh, it's that
Is
whole
it a
case
recent
is
one?
so. He was caught in 2011 or 2012 is when he was caught, and then he died by suicide in prison or while he was waiting to be tried. So Israel Keys was first caught because, again, he had abducted this young barista, and it's on camera because you can watch the video, and it's very sad. He took her to his home, he assaulted her, he murdered her, but then went away on a cruise for a couple weeks, came back. It was cold, it was Alaska, so the body was somewhat preserved, dressed the body up and put makeup on it to take a picture to send to the family demanding a ransom.
That is messed up.
It's super messed up. But he kept using her card.
That's stupid.
And so he was caught. They caught him from that. And once he was in custody, he admitted to a few more murders. But none of these other murders he admitted to, the bodies were never found. And they've confirmed a handful, even without bodies, they've managed to confirm, I think it's 3 of them. There was a number of other possible ones he committed. But part of what was so terrifying is he had kill kits all over the country. He would cross state lines because he knew, if I kill someone in Washington and I kill someone then in Alaska or California or wherever, no one is going to make the connection. Even if they find the bodies, no one's going to make the connection. Why would they?
I think that was another thing with Bundy too, is he killed people in a few different ways too. So they'll be like, oh, that's somebody else.
Yes. And by the time Bundy started, killing the first known victim that we have of his, and not talking about Anne-Marie Burr. Anne-Marie Burr was an 8-year-old girl who lived a few miles from Bundy, and Bundy was 14 at the time and living in Tacoma. And a lot of people believe she was his first victim. She disappeared one night, just disappeared from her home. And to this day, a body has never been found. When he was in prison, her mom wrote him asking, begging, tell me if you did something to my little girl. And he would be very evasive about it. And he would say, well, I don't kill kids. Well, that's not true. His last known victim was Kimberly Leach, who was 12. He killed children. But what we look at as being his first,
Plus, he was also still a kid.
He was still a kid. What we look at as being his first established victim, and this sounds horrible to say, but he was almost too good at it at that point. He had too specific a system, personally, for me to believe that was the first time he actually killed somebody. Mm-hmm. So that's where you start getting into how many people up until that point was he figuring out some of his methodology that we didn't know about or we didn't pick up on. And someone like Israel Keys, because he didn't stick to a certain physical type. He didn't even stick to a gender. He killed men and women. It opens up a possibility of victims that is inconceivable. And that, to me, is what starts to get scary, is that if you're breeding a more savvy serial killer who has watched the documentaries, who has listened to the true crime podcasts and knows what not to do, doesn't mean they won't ever get caught, obviously. But it
seems like sometimes they want the attention.
Oh, absolutely. But then you look at someone like the Long Island serial killer. He didn't want attention. All those bodies were found by chance.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
If somebody is interested in true crime, they have a fascination with it, they want to know about modern day serial killers or things like that really they try to suppress from the news media, where are they going to find the information?
I mean, honestly, I read more books than I watch some of the documentaries. partially because, not that books don't do this, but documentaries have a point of view, as they should, but they are still crafting their own narrative and their own story. Where with a book, I can look at their sources and I can see how balanced something may or may not be. I like being able to look at sources. So if no other reason, then it's a starting point. Okay, I read this book and I want to know more. What were their sources? I'm going to go and find all these things myself. So I'm a big read the book before you watch the documentary person. But I think if you're interested, there's a lot of really good material out there to read and to see.
What do you think about podcasts?
I think podcasts can absolutely be a wonderful source of information, just with the appreciation that the vast majority of podcasts, and I'm including myself in this, you are distilling a humongous story into often a 45-minute or so chunk of information. And so just be aware that oftentimes there's a lot of stuff that gets left out of podcasts. And be careful because, like anything else, a podcast is often someone's perspective and narrative that they are crafting. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do encourage people. The amount of times I sometimes have friends send stuff to me about a case that's going on and they're shocked and appalled, or they listen to a podcast episode about something, they're shocked and appalled. And I'm like, there's a whole lot more details about this than just those 45 minutes you listen to, and a lot more nuance. JonBenet Ramsey, I get sent so much shit about the brother did it.
Yeah, have they figured that one out yet? It seems like recently they had a whole big release of information on that.
There's some new details. There's some new things they were testing. But I think it can get really, really easily in unsolved cases to demonize and to villainize people, particularly, oh God, a really great example of this, White House farm murders. White House farm murders happened back in the early 80s. And it was really similar to, in a lot of ways, the DeFeo case. You had a whole family that was killed, and it was the Bambers, Neville and June Bamber, and their daughter, and her two young sons. And their eldest son, Jeremy, initially was the one who is calling police because he thinks his sister struggled with some mental health issues, and he thought his sister had lost it and was attacking the family. And initially that was what everyone thought. And then suspicion turned to Jeremy. Well, and again, here's the thing. People didn't like Jeremy. They thought he was arrogant. They didn't like how he was reacting to things. They didn't think he was reacting in a way that was normal. And eventually his girlfriend at the time comes forward and said that he did it and it was for the money. And he is arrested. He is convicted. He is still currently in prison. However, if you start really breaking down all of the evidence, and there was a article that came out sometime within the last year or two that really in depth dives into all of this, all of the inconsistencies, all of the horrible chain of custody with evidence. Based on the evidence, he should not have been convicted. Full stop. And the UK, they don't lightly do light in prison. There's like, I don't know, maybe 24 people who are actually serving honest to God life in prison. The thing you have to do to get a life in prison sentence, he is one of them. He has been in prison since the 80s. And yet there is a very real possibility that he is innocent. But if all I'm looking at is the narrative that was shaped for years, like H.H. Holmes, the narrative that's shaped for years, the story that is being told, I would think, in fact, the very first time I ever looked at the case, I thought he was guilty.
So you're thinking he's been pegged because he's kind of an odd duck.
And I think there's even some
See,
theories now
that
to be
kind
made,
of bugs me though too. I mean, not I don't know this case, but
yeah,
from my story in my town. So I don't know if you
yeah,
know much about Wenatchee, but we had a big murder here. It was a young girl. So of course,
mhm,
teenage girl gets murdered. Everyone gets upset. She's really pretty, really sweet. Everyone loved her, Mackenzie Cowell. And Chris Wilson, this guy who's a creep. You know, he
mhm.
listens to metal music. He's into
Oh,
horror
no.
movies. He's got black hair and everything, right? He gets arrested for it. And then the documentary that came out on it basically painted it as dumb hick folk white town witch hunted this kid because he looks weird. But if you actually live here, he
Yeah,
was a creep. You
yeah.
if he was at a party, people would be like, "Do not be alone with him." He would talk all the time about how bragging about girls he had choked, things he had done to girls, things he
Mm,
had done to hurt people. So yes, he was weird, but that's not why he had a reputation in this town. He
right.
was creepy. He was dangerous. He would say stories to his friends all the time about things he had done to people. And it was almost like they used him being weird as a way to kind of reverse like the opposite of that one to make it
Yeah.
seem like it's just a dumb hick town and he was innocent, but nobody here believes he's innocent.
Well, and that was a
Nobody.
documentary, right? That then came out to.
It was kind of a
Mhm.
doc. It was like a news, like a 60 minutes type thing that came out,
Sure.
but they really painted our town as just like a bunch of hillbillies who didn't know anything, and they
Well, and
just picked the weirdest kid. Like,
that kind of makes my point, which is I think if you're interested in true crime, what I encourage you to do is to not take any one piece of media as fact, and that anyone telling a story history is shaped by the person telling it.
mhm,
And so be careful as you start to explore these cases. Be careful if you're only taking one perspective. And so if you're only listening to one podcast and you're only watching one documentary or you're only reading one book, you're getting a very narrow, and again, it doesn't mean not accurate, but if you really are interested in something, make sure you're getting a very full and rich picture. If you want to just like listen to some creepy stories and listen casually, then yeah, listen to like Morbid or whatever. And because those girls do their research pretty well. Find a podcast that they're pretty on top of their research, and you're going to be getting a thorough look at the story. If you're
yeah,
just
I
if you're
listen.
just
I
sort
on
of,
YouTube. I watch Rotten Mango a lot, and
yeah,
I think she
mhm,
does good storytelling, but she also has good facts in there.
yeah, absolutely. So I think it depends a little bit. Are you just wanting to like, I like true crime and I want to listen to some spooky stories and listen to some cases I find interesting, or are you interested in on a little bit of a bigger scale of looking into, like, I really like a lot of the historical cases, partially because I like that we are now at a place where information is more accessible, so you have more research being done, and oftentimes giving us a larger and more accurate picture of some of these older cases. And what seemed very straightforward was not usually quite as straightforward. So I really like that angle. I like that we have digitalized newspapers now where before I would have had to go to another state and go to their archives
Yeah,
and
I
sit through a local
remember that having to get
libraries.
like the microfiche and stuff, and
Yeah. And not everything has been put online too. There's still a lot of stuff that hasn't been
that's the thing
digitalized.
too. Like if I had heard that story from any other town, being somebody who's been goth since forever, I would have been
Yeah.
like, "That's terrible." If I had just saw that in the news, but the fact that I live here and I know who that person was, and know everyone was freaked out by that guy,
Yeah.
like.
And that gives you a really specific perspective on him and on the case.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think if you're someone who is interested in true crime at a different level, then just consume it all. Look at it all and keep open to your mind being changed too.
I think a lot of people also do a good job of doing their own investigations because, like you said, there was a big heyday where a lot of this information came out. And it's also the issue, I think, with a lot of like the Ryan Murphy shows is there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who know who these people were. They went to school with them. They knew the
Yeah.
victims. A lot of times people
Why
have,
I don't watch the shows.
yeah. And that's what's rough about it is people who've lost people to those serial killers. It gets all stirred up again for them and for what? So Ryan Murphy can make a slick,
make
sexy
make more money.
serial killer show that nobody asked for. And that's what he does. I mean, he does make them sexy. Like, I'm not trying to say, like, I'm weird. Like, that's just what Ryan Murphy does.
He titillizes things. He titillizes murder. He makes it. I mean, American Horror Story.
Yeah, the Menendez brothers, he had them in a relationship. There's no documentation of that.
Yeah.
I like that he's, showing a lot of stuff that people don't know, that they were abused, and there is some facts there. Yeah. And I like that they talked about some of the victims and gave them a spotlight in the Dahmer one, but then you also have people like stirring up all these, I have such a big crush on Jeffrey Dahmer now things, and it's just like, because you're doing it wrong, sir. Yeah. Like, if you did it right, that probably wouldn't be the case.
You're glamorizing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's where, and it's such a fine line, I think, to walk. And that, like, for the podcast, there's a reason I typically focus on slightly older cases. And that is a very intentional thing on my part. I think the most, I'm trying to think, the most contemporary cases I've covered, I've covered a couple in the 90s. I did Juana Barraza too, who was, I think, mostly the 80s and the 90s. But a lot of what I cover is stuff from like the 1920s, 1930s, the early 1900s, where you're not running the risk of stirring up some of the victims' families, or because Danny Rolling. I covered Danny Rolling.
And there's a difference between a podcast and a Netflix show that
absolutely. But and I also think if something's unsolved, I treat it very differently, because if it's an unsolved case, you can be bringing attention and hopefully getting some more information.
And I've heard of podcasts that have actually helped give information on unsolved things. So I think that's really cool. I have a lot more respect for that than it just, and honestly, the shows are enjoyable, but that's also kind of the problem. I don't know if it should be enjoyable.
And it kind of goes back to, like, it's our contemporary version of the really sensational journalism that was happening in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, that were embellishing things for titillation, to get readers, to get people to, and that is also why we have some really inaccurate accounts of these older cases, because they were trying to sell papers.
Yeah, and I think it's natural to be fascinated by this stuff, by unsolved crimes, by serial killers, and like, how does someone, like, I love the show Mindhunter. I want to know, like, how does their brain work? I think that's so fascinating. But when you cross the line, you're like, well, I'm going to be Jeffrey Dahmer for Halloween, or I'm, that kind of stuff. I think then you've crossed the line into treating them like celebrities.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you about, so are we okay with, like, time, or do you want to, Okay, this is a little longer than my shows normally go, but I'm having a good conversation with you. But of course, if you have to go, I totally understand. And thank you guys so much. In the chat, you guys are asking really good questions. Straight Out of BS Podcast wants to know about the Fox Hollow murders, which I've never heard of that.
Oh yeah, the Fox Hollow murders. And that was one, I think, Gabby, because we've covered it. And I believe Gabby is the one who, because it wasn't one of my episodes, but they were in Indiana back in the 90s, if I'm recalling correctly. And the guy murdered 11. They found the remains of 11 men, I believe, on the property. But they think that he killed a lot more. And it was this businessman, this very prominent businessman, and he had this whole other life, and he would target gay men, vulnerable young men. He would go to bars and pick them up, and he would bring them back to his to the farm and torture and murder them. It was really, really horrific. But he was caught in the mid 90s. I'd have to look it up, because again, it's been a little bit since I've done anything with this case, and Gabby was the one who did the deep dive on it. But I think they've been looking more recently.
They can find that on your podcast.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah. And it was because I believe it was a double episode. And there was a docu-series I think that was done this year that's brought some more attention to it. There's been some DNA evidence that's being used to try to, I think, identify some of the victims that they haven't identified all the victims yet from the remains. But yeah, just a horrible case, really upsetting. I'm trying to remember what happened to the guy. I think, no, he died by suicide. That's right. He died by suicide. So that was the other piece of the case that made it challenging, is because of that. There's a lot of unanswered questions. But there's some very good books that have been written, and we did do an episode on it that will explain a lot more than I just kind of stumbled through.
A question I have, because I got very interested in this. It feels like it was a year ago that they started talking about the Zodiac killer again, and they believe that they found out who did it.
That's bullshit.
So you don't believe they did? No. And that's I think one issue I would have with the books, again, just because I've been doing research for this Exorcist episode, and until recently, fairly recently, as far as when the Exorcist movie came out, the story that it was inspired by, I don't want to say based on, because it really isn't.
Yeah.
The story that was inspired by, they hadn't released a name, nobody had anything. But then there was this one reporter who got very involved in it, and it was only in the last 10 years that we even found out what the kid's name was. So you couldn't really get the real story. So I have some Exorcist books that are well, no, that's not known, but there are more modern books that will give you that information.
Yeah.
So it's probably the same thing with serial killers and stuff too, especially ones where we're getting more information. So did we actually get new information with the Zodiac case?
Depends on who you ask. The problem with the Zodiac case, there's so many problems with the Zodiac case.
I find it fascinating just because it's so big but unsolved, and we have all these movies and everything. And
one, you had Robert Graysmith who hyper focused on one person, but if you've read his book is actually not the most accurate, and there's some inconsistencies. There's some things that's a whole episode right there.
Oh yeah. Well, we're gonna have you come back and go into depth with some of these,
because we only kind of just started touching on the true crime too, so that we can come back with more of a focus on that.
Maybe we should just have you back for a whole true crime stream.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know I'm going to do that.
I mostly did a lot of haunting stuff, and I was like, oh, we gotta get to the true crime stuff, but maybe we'll have to come back and go more in depth on true crime. So if you guys are watching this and you're enjoying the conversation, give us some true crime stories that you would like us to talk about for next time you come back. And if we have a list of them, I can do some research too, because I do not know about a lot of these. I didn't know about the Fox Hollow murders. So
if you're in the Whidbey Island area in February, I'm going to be doing a presentation on the Hinterkaifeck murders. So you can find me doing a live PowerPoint and presentation on that. So I can I'll be putting some stuff up about it, but that is a hyper focused area if you are on Whidbey Island or the surrounding area.
I think next time we have you back, we'll have a list of true crime stories that we're going to talk about. So,
yes, absolutely.
Maybe if you guys want a bunch of smaller ones, my husband did mention Patrick Kearney. Do you know anything about that one?
Oh yeah, I did.
He killed his cousin.
Oh no way! I did a PowerPoint on him. It's been a couple years.
His cousin was 6 years old.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I know who. Yeah. Yes. Oh, it's a horrible case too. It's really upsetting. Arthur Shawcross is another one. I did him at Crypticon one year for the True Tales of Murder that not a lot of people know about, and it is really upsetting. Partially because he went to prison once, and he should have stayed in prison because he assaulted and murdered 2 children, and then he was let out of prison, and then went on to kill another dozen women. and stuff like that, where you're just like, the system failed us horribly here. But yeah, this is a topic to easily go down so many different avenues and rabbit holes.
Do you
And
have some in particular that you enjoy talking about more than others, or that you consider yourself to be more of an expert on?
I am, it is weird to say, a fan of Belle Gunness, but if you're familiar with her work, you'll understand my wording there. Belle Gunness was a female serial killer.
That I think is fascinating. We don't hear about a lot of them, and I feel like when we do get female serial killers, they're almost always notorious for killing children.
I know I feel really bad being like, she is one of my favorites, but her case is so bonkers. It is just utterly nuts and insane. Okay, I'll give you a teaser of Belle Gunness. She was a Norwegian immigrant in the late 1800s, early 1900s. She came to this country to have a better life. She got married to this man, and at one point in time, he had a life insurance policy on himself, which is responsible. They had a couple children. Yeah, have a life insurance policy. People die. And the life insurance policy was expiring, so they bought another life insurance policy. And the two life insurance policies crossed over by one day. One of them was starting that day. The other one was ending that day. And wouldn't you know it, he had a horrible heart attack.
Right.
On the day that those insurance policies crossed over. That's not even the start of Belle Gunness, but that is, to me, one of the first moments of batshit with her, where you're just like, I'm going to buckle up, because this is the journey of Belle Gunness. This is the kinds of things she did. Her second husband had a horrible accident where a meat grinder fell on his head accidentally.
Like it does. Like they do.
Like it does. Like, I know I, for one, have a definite fear. I'm a vegetarian, and I'm still afraid of being hit in the head with a meat grinder. So that she's just wild. Her entire case is utterly wild, and so many people have never heard of her.
Yeah.
And she was, I mean, this is obviously, she's long dead at this point, but the whole thing is insane. It is utterly insane. So I do enjoy talking about Belle Gunness a lot. Jake Bird is one that I've been doing some really extensive research on. That was another one who was out of Tacoma. Well, kind of out of
list. Yeah. I'm making a list, and some of these I will have her come back, and we'll go into more details on these. Jake Bird?
Jake Bird, he's sometimes called the Tacoma Axe Fiend. And when I've covered him multiple times now, I'm actually looking at writing a book on him.
Oh, wow.
Because no one has ever sat down and written a book on him. And yet, again, he's another one that's fascinating. He broke into a home in 1947 and murdered two women. He's caught that same night. And he's convicted in their murders. And then he starts confessing to murder after murder after murder. Dozens of murders. And while he was in prison, they actually closed, I believe it was 11 cases in other states. Because what he used to do was ride the rail lines. He was a transient. He'd break into homes. If someone was there, he'd murder them and he'd rob them. And he spent some time in prison. They knew that he had attacked some people. He's let out of prison. He continues to attack people. But then they executed him in 1949. So we have all these unanswered questions and all of these victims and potential victims. And so one of the things I've been doing is putting together a comprehensive victim list, which didn't really exist prior to now. But he's another and some people know him because he put a hex on the people involved in this trial. And within a year, like 5 people were done. We're dead.
See, that's the thing where there's a crossover between this paranormal thing and true crime. I feel like they merge sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, Jake Bird's another one that I very much enjoy talking about. And another one that I love the cases and the killers. that have some really interesting stuff attached to it, but are lesser known. And so I'm a sucker for some of those.
Yeah. Someone in the chat, Quirk, who is a new member of the channel, he said Will Maxwell happened in my hometown, which ties into Kill a Mockingbird stories.
Oh, yeah. I'd be curious, like, because that's one of the things that I really enjoy with well, and I mean, it kind of comes back to what you were saying earlier about the case that happened in your town and the information you have when you grow up with that history. But he was a minister.
There's actually, for such a small town, we have so many really disturbing murders here. There was like one with a mom and her daughter in East Wenatchee that I'll tell you about sometime, but it's gnarly.
But yeah, Harper Lee, I apologize too if I'm getting some of these details wrong. Harper Lee researched the Willie Maxwell, I think I think that's how he's usually reported. And he killed his family members, and then he got shot at the funeral, I think, of one of them, if I am recalling correctly. But again, I'd have to review some of the, but yeah, Harper Lee,
we're putting you on the spot here. You're doing very well. It's
like, what are all the details?
The fact that you're able to have answers to these is astounding. You're doing well, better than I would expect. But that's why we're going to come back to a lot of these. So if you want her to cover Will Maxwell in more detail, I'm going to have her back, and I'm going to give her like maybe 4 or 5 that we're going to talk about in detail.
Absolutely.
So that way she's prepared. She's got her notes. But I mean, considering you're doing this just on the fly, girl, I'm impressed.
Like my little like encyclopedia that sometimes crosses, like sometimes what I run into is that I start to mix certain cases up, and that's where it gets dangerous. So I was like, wait, was that this case or was that this?
I'm very interested in the Bell one because I have not heard about too many female serial killers. So we'll have to talk about Jake Bird. But let us know in the comments or in the chat if you have any requests, and then I'll talk to you later on too. And I'm sure you know some really good ones that I think the ones that are not as well known, that don't have a billion Netflix documentaries and TV stuff. Because I'm not super well versed in true crime, but I can tell you lots of details about Ted Bundy just because I've seen a billion movies, you know, and I think a lot of us have. So, Queric says, that was totally accurate. So,
oh, cool.
Girl, you're good. You're really good. So, hopefully you guys are interested in that. So we're gonna have Kim back soon. But we have kept Kim here for a very long time, and she does have to be.
I've had fun.
I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit what's going on the channel here. On Wednesday, I'm gonna be doing a stream about our favorite horror holiday movies with the Night Watch Zone and Coriander. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys check that out. And then we've got another Gory Talk on Sundays, but I stream every Sunday and Wednesday. And if you're a channel member like Queric, we also sometimes have streams on Fridays, or if it's Joe Bob night like this Friday, you will still get a member exclusive video. So tell them what's happening with you, and you said you've got an event coming up, and then Ghoulish Tendencies Podcast.
You can find Ghoulish Tendencies Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
And links below.
Yes, and we usually release twice a month. Gabby is in. She's getting her doctorate right now in forensic psychology, so it means our release schedule is sometimes off by a day or two. So forgive us for that, but we do have a good back category of episodes for you to pick and choose from. I've been doing some true crime events where I do a little presentation, and the next one currently scheduled is February. But if you look at my Instagram, I will post about any others that happen in between then. Other than that, I mean, if you like supporting local youths, I have some horror shorts that I made with some of my teen actors at one of the local theaters, and those are streaming right now at youththeater.org. So you can check those out if you want to watch like some very silly horror films with teenagers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really cool. You said it was youththeater.org?
Youththeater.org. Yep, we do a program.
Put that in the chat, so I'll add that afterwards.
Wonderful. It's Night of 1,000 Scares.
Theater or theater?
Theater RE.
RE. Okay, I had to
Mhm.
double check.
No, it's
.org.
smart.
Yeah, Boozak. So thank you guys so much. It was so great to see Grandma's house and Steve happy and straight out of BS podcast. If you guys are not already subscribed, please do. Like I said, I do these streams 2 times a week, and we will be having Kim back because she's my ghoul. You know?
Yeah.
We love to hang out here, and yeah, she's got so much information for you guys. So definitely come back. I'm trying to remember if I forgot anything. Is there anything I'm forgetting?
I think all that was good. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, I will see you guys on Wednesday to talk about holiday horror movies. And until we meet again, blessed be.